Okay, we're calling this meeting to order at 4:03. Clerk Flintoff, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Carrie,
Present.
Gapel,
Present.
Flintoff, present, Brandt,
Here.
Monk, absent, Noel,
Here.
Riser, absent. I believe, Riser is on his way, and, trustee Monk. We received a letter, stating she plans to resign, and we'll be hearing that item at our next regular meeting. Also present is our township attorney, Mariah Fink. Christy Aiken is out today. Rebecca Motti is here, and Ali Norris is online.
Moving on to the adoption of the agenda, are there any, well, this is a special meeting, we've called it for the FYE 26 Township Budget Deliberations. All in favor? We don't, or do we need to, we don't need a,
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Support.
oh yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes. Okay. Now it's time for public comment. Anyone in the public that's present, would you like to speak? And this is for up to 5 minutes on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees.
Is this the time to talk about cost allocation?
Yes.
You know me. We'll talk about it. Okay. So you have heard from me about why I believe the allocation of overhead costs violates the intent of the Land Preservation Fund millage proposal and ignores the language of Scio Township's own ordinance. You have also heard why I think the cost allocation plan uses inappropriate criteria for allocating costs to the Land Preservation Fund. Today, I would like to show you why the Land Preservation Commission gets so upset about these cost allocations. So let's look at the activity of the Land Preservation Commission for fiscal year 2024. That information is on the budget report that you have. Our program is not a typical department. We do not have employees with payroll. We do not have departmental equipment that requires maintenance. We do not occupy an office. We are 7 volunteers who meet once a month for 2 hours. Scio has hired a consultant, Barry Lonick, who conducts the bulk of our program activities. We don't require a lot of administrative support. For fiscal year end 2024, these activities involved approximately 30 cash disbursements, 30 checks. How much time does it take to write 30 checks and record them? The cash disbursement for these 30 checks totaled $54,010. The cost allocation for that year was $26,832. That is a 49.7 charge rate. Of the total $80,843 of expenditures listed on our financial statements for that year, the allocated cost consisted of 33%. That's pretty high. Note our consultant's total fee for that year was $29,311. Allocated costs were $26,832. Are you implying through this charge that drafting and recording 30 checks and maintaining one email account that rarely gets used and is currently not listed online requires as much time as Barry Lonick spends contacting landowners, engaging in real estate negotiations, researching properties, monitoring conservation easements, writing grant applications, and addressing the LPC's needs and requests? In fact, with these numbers, the Scio Township staff would have to be putting in more time because Barry's charge rate for that year was $105 per hour, and I know we do not pay staff that much. For fiscal year 2025, that's this year, I've had to extrapolate because the year's not done yet, but extrapolating, the annual activity involves approximately 25 cash disbursements, 25 checks. Again, how much time does it take to record and write these checks? The cash disbursement total for these 25 checks is approximately $43,485. The cost allocation for this year is 24,648. That's a 56.7 charge rate. Of the estimated total expenditures of 68,133 projected for this year, the allocated costs are 36%. Note that our consultant's fee for this year is expected to be $20,000, 655. That is less than what we're being charged for these allocated costs. And Barry's charge rate for this year is $110 per hour. You begin to understand why we get upset. Yes, we have significant revenues, but those are sitting in the bank. They are not requiring high maintenance costs. And frankly, they're supposed to be used for land acquisitions, not overhead. Now, you may argue that the cost allocation is based on prior year's activities rather than current years. So let's look at that. Let's look at the average of fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2022. We had 6 property closings, of which 2 were county properties and 4 were Scio Township properties. That's a total of 22 additional checks or 11 checks per year. This results in an average of approximately 41 cash disbursements for each year, 41 checks. Ignoring the land acquisition and closing costs, the average operating expenditures, the average is 63,833. The average consultant's charge was 37,153. The cost allocation for fiscal year 2024 that would be based on this activity was 26,832. We have the consultant's charge average is 37,000, and with a charge rate of $105 per hour, where all our allocated costs are 26,000 or 27,000. That doesn't make sense to me. That 26,832 of allocated costs is effectively a charge rate of 42% on our operating costs. This does not feel like a reasonable charge. So now you can understand why we get upset, because we don't feel that the charge accurately reflects the amount of time that it takes to service the account, given that unless we're buying a piece of land for millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, our actual activity is very small. And that's my presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Daryl.
But I do have one, if I have 1 minute, on your budgeting for the accounting fund and general ledger. Again, you're looking at deficit, but I was wondering why you have under accounting a full-time position for a finance director at $125,000, but then you also have a charge for contracted services with Plant Moraine. I probably pronounced it wrong, for finance director services of $132,000.
We'll be updating that footnote. That footnote is actually for 3 different contractors, not just the.
And it's not for finance, Moraine.
Right, the idea is that we'll have that contractor until we have a full-time person and then drop. that.
Okay, because I was going to look at you.
No, it will be one or the other.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? Any comments? None. Okay, thank you.
Those present, I'd like to speak during public comments.
Hello, everyone knows who I am. I just wanted to take a moment to voice my support for Daryl's interpretation of the millage language and her impression of the cost allocation. I know that multiple times that she's reached out to have a dialogue, to have a constructive conversation about the cost allocation. And, from my perspective, her inquiries and attempts to have a discussion with the board have continually resulted in no conversation. It is a legitimate question and one that also affects the parks millage. And so I believe that now is the time to create that meeting so that we do have a chance to sit down with whichever board members are interested and with the attorney, just so we can have an open, honest discussion about where cost allocation maybe could be altered. And if nothing changes, that's the result. But again, we deserve the chance to have this conversation. Thank you.
Anyone else present for public comments? Go. Please.
Yeah, please raise your hand if you're interested in speaking. First up is Pam Boyd. Hi, Pam.
Hi, thank you. Pam Boyd, Scio resident, Scio government watchdog. A comment first, after public comments are done, can we go back and do the Pledge of Allegiance? The second thing is, I noticed that the Jackson Road Cruise, since this is a budget meeting, Jackson Road Cruise is June 14th. And last year it was really disappointing that the road cruise attendees did not have a police escort to go down Jackson Road and back. That's one of the really big points during the cruise. And I didn't know if Scio Township has to pony up money for that. And it got missed last year. So since this is a budget meeting, I'm asking if Scio Township needs to budget for that, would they please add that in? Thank you very much.
Okay, after the public comment. Anyone else?
I see no other hands.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize for missing the Pledge of Allegiance. I guess maybe we should have it on two different line items. It's along with call order. So if we could do that now, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just have one.
Sure, yeah.
Pam, the only thing we've had to do for Jackson Road Cruise in recent years is the charitable gaming license. Not any sort of activity related to the police. Certainly, I don't know, Kathy, if you ever remember being asked for money for this, so I don't know that it has anything to do with us, Pam. But certainly we can share that feedback if we're asked.
Yeah, when the company contact the sheriff if they need it,
Typically, yeah,
I think that's
typically.
how,
typically they do, yeah.
okay.
And I also just wanted to say too, this is the, I'll leave it to you, Kathleen, but if you want, when we get to the budget item, to have an overview of cost allocation beyond the memo, happy to do that. But we're not, whatever questions, the board has.
No, I did pose some questions to Mariah. And I don't know if you were gonna talk about that at all here tonight, or I asked you some questions about cost allocation, and you basically said, yes, the board can do that, but there was more to it than that.
Well, I think what we talked about is there's a difference between can you and should you, and the should you question is not really a legal question, that's more of an accounting question. So the can you question, I think for the most part, I've answered that there are certain things that can be cost allocated. Should you cost allocate and how should you cost allocate is
That's in the memo.
is more of a, I mean, it's a board decision ultimately, but it's more of an accounting question. So.
And if you want to talk about it, we can review the memo or the spreadsheet in whatever level of detail. I mean, we've talked about the formula. It's a board decision on what methodology we use that we feel is equitable. So, happy to go through it.
As we go through the meeting, maybe we should, since it keeps coming up.
It's a topic. I'm just saying, if the board wants to, we should just set aside a chunk of time, 10 minutes to go through it.
You mean at another meeting, not today?
No, I don't mean at another meeting. I mean, at this meeting,
Okay.
but I leave it to, Kathleen, and this item. It's all part of the budget. Because we gotta talk about positions, we gotta talk about a lot of things.
So should we do that after the budget presentation?
It's all part of the budget. This is all gonna impact what we're talking about.
So how do you want to go about, what should we do first? What
I'd,
does everybody want to do?
I'd ask Kathleen kind of what her plan was.
The order of it makes no difference whatsoever.
I mean, I would suggest we start with the biggest numbers and also that we also might, for anybody who's here related to non-101 issues, that we might address those. I don't know.
So are we that point in the agenda?
Well, we are finished with public comment, so we are on to unfinished business, which is the possible action for FYE 26 township budget deliberation. And I guess that's you, trustee Brandt.
Okay, just some precursor, discussion. The budget has been updated, I think, as of maybe Thursday last week. That has all of the salary and fringes in it. That made sort of a tight schedule to get this stuff ready for this meeting. I did put in the packet a summary document so we can look at individual departments within Fund 101. We also have the other funds that we should talk about, and considering our staff here, I would suggest we talk about those items first. Murphy, you said you had something for an adjustment to your budget. Can you please explain that?
So in an email, I'm not sure, I don't believe that Kathy Noel was included on it. When John, but he's not here at the moment.
You entered the entire board.
Oh, it went to everybody. Okay, great, good. Okay, so in that email, I talked about $200,000 being included in land improvements for this budget, $200,000 more than what we had anticipated. This is due to a project that was already approved by the board in October, the improvement of the loop around Township Hall Park. And due to weather constraints and other factors in January, we were not able to meet the deadline before the next fiscal year begins. So we are just moving the funds that were allocated for that project to this upcoming fiscal year.
So where's the account number again? Land improvements?
Land improvements, yes.
208-751-974.
Yeah.
Although I will note that there's a bit confusing looking at this because there's multiple of those accounts.
Because there's multiple what?
Multiple of those accounts.
So the first one is the one you want to look at. The second one, you'll see, like, for example, dash Marshall, dash
And then the one
Vancouver.
says Dash Township Hall.
That's the one,
Yeah,
right? That's the one.
and those are, so what we have,
Wait, what's the number again?
208-751-974.
Okay, were you about to say that the Township Hall one should have been removed?
All park specific GLs should have been removed. So everything, for example, no matter which preserve or park and the land improvements are happening within, all of those are supposed to be budgeted in one GL, not broken out by preserve.
Got it.
So we currently have 150 still in that GL for Township Hall Park. Is your proposal that we increase that to 200? I mean, we'll get rid of the project specific.
Yes, yes.
But that 150 consists of 50 for the playground,
Today's.
100 for the pavilion,
Yeah.
and then it sounds like plus 200.
Plus 200,000.
Plus 200.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay,
So
great.
it's not really, it's not a monetary issue, it's just a timing issue more than anything.
So that 150, we should increase to 350.
Yes.
And we'll make a note. And I know Ally, if you could pop on, I see you're on here.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I'm here. My video, it won't let me go on video. I don't know if that is intentional or not, but just letting you know. but I am here.
It wasn't intentional, no. Okay. Great, so 200,000 more there, and understood that we're doing away with the project-specific designations, yeah.
Yeah, so Murphy, that just puts your budget just about $40,000 over your revenue stream. I don't know what you have for fund balance. I'm just.
Yeah, so we definitely have enough to cover. We'll still be in the black. Great. Okay, and so did you want to talk about any other parks related questions? Because I haven't received any questions about the parks budget.
No, I think Christie said that staff didn't need to be here unless there were questions. I knew there was this issue. I don't have any. Does anybody else?
I don't have any either.
I did talk to Murphy earlier today and just asked her some questions about this tractor issue. And are you saying now you guys are comfortable with
What is the tractor issue?
Murphy?
So, as we know, the Kubota that we currently have that was purchased mostly by parks, but also partially by water and sewer and grounds is not effective. It's not a useful tool for us, so we'll be, with board approval, moving to either auction it or sell it back to the company that we purchased it from. And we will be purchasing an alternative tool that will have more utility for my department.
So why, I don't think this question had ever been asked. Why do you think the existing tractor is inadequate?
In so many ways, it's not adequate. And if you have the time, I'm signed into my computer so that I could pull up some images of the tractor that we would be purchasing versus some of the limitations that the Kubota.
Yeah, no, explain.
Okay, sure.
Give me some idea why it doesn't work.
The Kubota itself does not have a brush hog attachment there's no brush hog attachment, partially because it doesn't have enough power to power a brush hog. Our preserves and parks need to be intensely maintained at this point because there has been little to no invasive species removal done at any of our parks or preserves since we acquired them. To outsource the brush hogging itself, it's not accurately reflected in the budget that you're looking at. It's actually to contract out the service of brush hogging is at minimum $2,500 per acre. So if you take just one of our preserves, for example, Liberty Pond Nature Area at 40 acres in need of brush hogging before we can even begin prescribed burns, which is from the actual, we took 2 different consultants out there to do an estimate for a prescribed burn. They won't even touch it until it's been fully brush hogged because the thatch underneath has become so thick, it wouldn't even reach the ground. So that's one. I mean, take $2,500 times 40 acres and
Property,
Liberty Pond Nature Area.
you need to brush off the entire thing.
Yes. It'll be part of an integrated pest management plan. That's how we approach all of the preserves. It's a combination of biological, mechanical, and pesticide control to get these invasive species under control. And that's part of what's explicitly said in the parks millage is it's not just a matter of mowing trails. We're supposed to preserve these spaces for ongoing biodiversity. It's not just about having a place for people to walk. It's supposed to also increase the ecosystem and it's supposed to be an ecosystem benefit. For example, in the authorized positions that I had shared, I did a comparison of Napa Van Arbor, Mathi Botanical Gardens, Nickel Arboretum, and our Scio preserves. If you look at Mathi and Scio, in terms of acreage, we are borderline exactly the same. But if you look at their staffing, their staffing is significantly higher than ours to maintain almost the exact same amount of acreage. But in terms of just focusing on their ability to brush hog at Mathi Botanical Gardens. They have a tractor, a tool cat, and a Ventrac, all with brush hogging capabilities, which they use on a rotating regular basis. That's just for the botanical gardens. They also have the Arboretum, which they have 2 tractors with 2 brush hog attachments.
So, your budget is constrained by the millage. So, you know, I don't know what they have at these other preserves. I don't know how they do their funding. But yours is constrained by what we get from the millage. So we have to work within those parameters.
And we absolutely are. That tractor is well within our budgeted. We can absolutely afford it. It's a tool that is necessary if we want to enact the millage as it was voted on by the Scio residents.
Don't we need brush hogging for the utility?
Yes, it's got ubiquitous use throughout. It's not just for parks. I mean, the parks need it the most, but it could also be utilized by other departments. To do tasks that we will otherwise have to contract out at a very high cost. And it's not just about the cost of contracting them out. For example, if we were to contract out 10 acres at Liberty Pond Nature Area at $2,500 minimum, they will come when they have time. You won't know, they'll come when they have time, and you might not be able to be out there when they're out there. So even if you've marked trees that you want to keep, they'll go out there and they'll just brush hog the whole thing. There is a lack of accountability when it comes to having other companies do it, but if we don't have the ability to do it ourselves, we will have to contract that service out.
So does anybody on this board have any objections?
No, this is the $60,000 item we already
Yeah.
talked at nauseam about. I don't know where the concerns
Well,
coming from.
so are you satisfied with what they're saying, Murphy?
Yes, I just want to know that this is a necessary purchase. That if we don't do it, is going to have years-long ramifications on our parks and preserves. We absolutely have to have it.
So we're saying we will do this.
We're saying it's in the budget.
It's in the capital plan, it's in the budget.
Capital plan.
There was no question about taking it out until just right now.
Okay.
Okay.
So I want to clarify also the revenue for what she's proposing comes 100% from the millage, right?
Yes,
Nothing is coming out of the general fund.
that's correct.
Correct.
Or,
As proposed.
right, and wasn't there something about utilities as well? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, if
Cost share out.
Cost sharing, yeah, thank you.
if there becomes a benefit to cost sharing, absolutely, that is something that we'll look at, especially when it comes to this vehicle could be utilized for purposes that are beyond what I would need them for at the park. But if we have the vehicle, then it should be shared. It should be a shared benefit.
Well, then there will be some cost allocation. Okay, we all done with that? We've got a lot of ground to cover. That's the only reason I'm.
My only part of it is that this item wasn't something that I proposed. I was letting Murphy work through what she thought she needed to best suit her parks and pathways and preserves. As she grew closer to what item she needed, it was realized that this is definitely a benefit to utilities as well. And so this would be something that once we finalize and get 100% sure and this is where we're going, I would be asking the board to allow me to cost share that with her so that we could use it for easement clearing in the utility department.
Thank you.
Awesome.
We're ready to move on.
Can I just clarify, the only change now to parks is adding $200,000 to land improvements and moving it from land improvements township to just land improvements in general, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Ally, thank you for interjecting. I sometimes forget you're out there.
And apologies, Ally and I are having trouble with her video, but she is here.
Okay. Okay, so any other general funds anyone wants to talk about?
Yes, I do. At the last board meeting, we had approved the 3.1% COLA for eligible staff. Over the weekend, this just wasn't sitting well with me, and because there was so much going on at that meeting. And also, I was under the impression before, and in my mind, that the COLA, the changes that we were requesting regarding the 6 months, 12 months, or whatever, was more of a policy procedure, and we mixed it together, and then we have staff that have been here for quite some time. They're all, well, except for one, we have one that's probationary, and of course, he just began, so COLA is out for him. But the rest of them have been here, past their probation, and starting even with Barb, our deputy clerk, who began in June. So she would not be eligible.
Correct.
Doing it, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I am still speaking. So I did the math, and it only comes to 13,982.24 for the year. And our staff is here working hard for us, and to say, oh, you know what, you've got to wait, it's 4 more months for your COLA. They're gonna get COLA, but this makes a difference in their lives. They're working hard for us, and we have kind of low morale right now. And I think that we should rescind I don't know if that's the right word, but as far as the COLA to pay staff now, and then later on, we need to sit down as a board and go through COLA and make a policy that ends up in the employee handbook, right? That's where it would be.
Yeah, that's where
Okay.
it should have been. I will say, point of order, though, if you want to take an action to revise anything on COLA, we should do that at our March 11th.
Okay, I will bring that forward.
Because that's not the purpose of this special.
No, but we are talking, and trustee Brandt said, is there anything other than general fund to bring up? So that's what I thought.
Mhm.
It would be a nice time to bring that up.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Good
and
evening, hello, I was dropping someone off at the airport, international flight, apologies. How would rescinding the COLA help with staff morale? What am I missing?
not the COLA.
Can we save that conversation?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, not rescinding the COLA itself, rescinding this motion so we can implement
Just wanted to
COLA.
revise it so that it applies to more people.
okay.
To everybody,
Okay.
except for
But
the,
this is a special meeting on the budget, so.
you can't
Oh,
have the,
No, I was listening on the way in. Yeah, I heard all about the Kubota and the Bosch hog and all that. So nice to see everyone.
okay.
Okay, any other non-101 fund that people would like to talk about?
All right. You,
I will make a comment on 2 of the funds. And then I think we should move on. Water and sewer, I am not in support of having overtime for installing meters that can be scheduled based on time that it's available. So I do not support 22,000 in sewer and 22,000 in water. So we have had support for removing them.
I thought it was pretty well justified when we went through it, if I recall correctly, it was at least part of it. Now, I know part of it was the meter replacement, not all of it. What is your thought about the meter replacement, that they should be able to do it during regular
that
working
was-
hours instead of scheduling on a Saturday?
Yes, that was the dialogue when we bought these meters, and somehow the schedule became accelerated, leading to overtime. It just seems artificial to me.
well,
Mhm.
so there's,
Yeah.
so they work from 7 to 3, and they're supposed to schedule people that work during the day from 7 to 3. Monday through Friday. And if I remember correctly, it was open, there was scheduling on Saturdays because a lot more homeowners were at home. What time did they show up to your house, Kathy, when they replaced your meter?
It was on a weekday. It was in the morning.
It was after 7.
It was after 7
Yeah,
a.m.
was yours, is yours inside or outside?
No, they're inside now.
I'm sorry.
Mine,
There's only very, very few that are outside. I would say less than a handful. Well, the vast majority are gonna be inside.
Can I
It
call
was
the
very
question?
chaotic.
please? Can I call the question?
say that again?
What is the motion?
To remove the overtime component.
In both from 590 and 591?
Do we want to decide that now?
Reserves.
Yeah, the second.
Support it.
Okay, I'm just trying to record what's on the table.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Rebecca has her hand up.
Aye.
Yeah. Oh,
And Rebecca? Okay, good. Great. And Rebecca, if you have any insight on the breakdown of overtime to date in utility, we'd appreciate it. Feel free to come on up.
it looked like she had her hand up. Or was that just from before?
I'm back, guys. My video is still not working for whatever reason, so I will not leave again, but I just had my hand up to let you know I was back. Thank you,
Oh, yeah,
Rebecca.
Ally, do you have the breakdown on the 22,000 overtime? How much of that is
no.
knee replacement?
No, it's just a number. I can pull up previous department budgets and there may be some additional information in there, but I think it was just a generalized number.
Sorry,
There's not a
Rebecca.
whole lot of history on it because it's a newer, you know.
We weren't tracking it distinctly. We were just tracking it in wages. So this is the first time we're kind of lifting up and able to kind of look at how we budget and use overtime.
Brandon, how many,
I called the question, please.
Can we still discuss?
No, not what you call the question. Point of order.
well, we should have discussion before the call to question.
Was there a motion that was called?
There's a
What was the
motion and a second.
What was the
We
motion?
will never end this meeting if we don't.
I'm just
move
Well, we have
along.
about 6 more hours, though.
You do, I don't.
What
we
was
do.
the motion, please? I'm sorry.
To eliminate the budget amounts in water and sewer for 22,000.
Coming back. Thank you.
And I believe per our rules of order there, I just want to make sure I've got this right, to call the question. I believe, Julian, we need if there's a motion to vote immediately, we have to take that, we have to ask for a vote on calling the question immediately. Before the discussion. So somebody calls the question.
Okay, Julia? You're on?
So it's
Oh,
the
now we-
motion vote immediately, call the question.
Is there also a 2/3 requirement?
We actually don't have a 2/3 requirement.
Just checking.
So in theory, we call the question, but then we can have our discussion.
So a motion to call the question, I believe we need to take a vote on that immediately. And then that calling the question means ending debate and voting on the primary motion that's on the table.
So you're actually voting on the call of the question.
That's what
right?
I'm
Not
suggesting we, Jillian, do.
I'm sorry, I still don't see this.
So call the question is
9.4.
9.4.
Mhm.
No, which one?
First bullet, motion to vote immediately.
motion to vote immediately. Call the question means the same as vote immediately.
Which under 9.3 is non-debatable.
Correct. Which is why
how much more time are we gonna spend debating whether we can do this by our rules?
Right, so you need to take a vote on whether or not the question will be on her motion to call the question. You're gonna vote on that first. And if people agree to call the question, there's no debate, and then the original motion is voted on.
So if we call, okay, call the question and then if we vote in, if we vote in approval, then we go to the original motion and then
Correct.
we don't discuss at all.
Correct.
Okay. All right, call the trustee Brandt. The motion to call the question and then right, treasurer Yeaple in support and, roll call vote, please.
Okay, per our rules of order, tonight we're starting with me. Yes, Grant,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Carrie,
No.
Yeaple.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Riser, I didn't mean to miss you.
That's
Trustee
quite all right.
Riser?
That's all right. I'm just gonna be an ineffective no vote.
Okay, motion passes 4-2. Would you like me to read the motion?
Yes, and who called,
A motion by Brandt, support by Yeaple, to remove the overtime amounts from 590-000-704 and 591-000-704.
roll call vote, please.
Flintoff, no. Brandt,
Yes.
Noel,
No.
Riser,
No.
Harry,
No.
Yeaple.
Yes.
Okay. Motion fails 2-4.
Okay, let's see if I have anything else. Things other than 101. I do have a question on the DDA. It states in their state grant, $600,000 for the brownfield and Project Smooch. I thought that they have already received this fund, the remediation has already occurred.
It is continuing and we're a pass through, so that doesn't affect Scio other than
So
we have
it's,
some paperwork.
we have received funding for that, so it seems like this 600,000 is too high.
Well, it depends, and so we have, I know, Ryan, we're sitting on some money right now. You remember how much that is that we need to send over to?
Rebecca, we got a wire in for what, about $34,000 in January?
So far for this project, we've only received 187 some odd dollars, thousand.
Yeah, there's additional work to be done. This is taken upon us before my involvement with the township. Just complicates our financials more, but you can see it through.
Okay. I'm fine with that
But
response.
that was the information we had. We thought it was done
Yes,
and then learned that it was not done. So that information had changed.
that's why I'm asking the
Yeah.
question, because I
Sure.
attended those meetings. I do question, other funding in the DDA, specifically $300,000 to look at a pedestrian bridge across I-94.
That is. Well, and that. We've only met twice with the EDA, right, Ryan, since we've taken office?
Yes.
Yeah, and we are still working out a lot of things, regarding the pedestrian bridge, study. We have the study from OHM that we're going to present at the next meeting, and we're gonna talk about all of this. And the, that was in the capital improvement plan. And I don't remember how much we put aside for that.
It says $200,000 here. If we have no idea what that entails, I recommend we take that out. And I would also like to take out extension of the DDA $100,000.
That's a study.
I disagree with having a study for that. I think the board needs to deliberate on that.
Yeah, I do want to say on the pedestrian study, we already established, we've already paid for the study. They determined, right, OHM did that study already.
It's an old study now, though.
It's
Around 3 years.
2023.
It's not longer.
You have a copy of it.
Yeah, it's not longer. And so we've already done a feasibility study on that. I think the thing that jumps out to me more is the extension of the DDA life. I would say that's not necessarily, and I think it's, something that, the DDA and the township board may need to look at together what we want to do with it, but I feel like this is sort of a assumption of the direction we want to go. And I don't know that it's in our interest to be doing that. I think if it were, a broader kind of a question, but it's kind of odd to have the subcomponent unit of government that captures the funding be the one to determine, hey, should we continue to exist? Like, guess what the answer is gonna be? Yes. So, and it's $100,000.
I think that's what the study is for, is to look at, the pros and cons and what the DDA can do in the future to support the
And I think
authority,
that
or not
makes,
the authority, but the area.
I think it would make sense for the board to be doing a study instead of the DDA or in collaboration, but
I think there could be a collaborative effort towards that. If you want to remove it for now in order for the board and the DDA to figure out how to fund it, so be it.
That's what I would recommend. And regarding the pedestrian, $200,000, would not want this in the budget because it gives the impression that the board thinks we should do that, and I don't think we even deliberated on that project.
And the yeah, right, but the DDA does have authority to do improvements within the DDA area.
The board has authority to set their budget.
and I just.
They'll approve their budget. Or not.
Okay, then I won't approve the budget.
So I just want to go back, because we talked about this during the capital improvement plan. I just want to verify, Ally, because what we winded up landing on was just kind of a placeholder for the DDA items.
Right.
Because we knew that the DDA needed to do, with new members and needed more time. So I do agree with striking the pedestrian and sewer study. Because there is a placeholder, I would expect that the DDA would have a couple meetings and then maybe come back in our first quarterly budget amendments and have kind of a clearer idea of what to propose.
Sure.
But at this point, I would be more comfortable kind of, starting without that $200,000 proposed expenditure when we have no plan.
That's my suggestion.
So just out of curiosity then, would the capital improvement plan remove the $200,000 then as well? Because if we have it in the cap plan as planning to be spent, why would you not want it in the budget?
So Ally, we have it as a placeholder for DDA projects, and this was similar to what the board determined to do related to the Upland sidewalk project, where if you look at the narrative, it's set to 0. Because it was kind of a TBD, needs more planning. We're interested in it. We want to figure it out.
Sorry, I just always immediately jump to the actual spreadsheet with the breakout of all the years. I see that. So we're removing the 200 from the budget.
I think we need to take I would suggest we take a vote.
Sure.
Unless we can get consensus.
Is there consensus to remove the $200,000?
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
The week.
Okay. Then yes, Ally. From 494,000,817.
494 is the,
Mhm.
okay.
DDA.
Ally, did you have something to say?
I did. It unmutes me and then mutes me sometimes.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. Just confirming, we're removing the 200 for the pedestrian and sewer study, but are we leaving in the 100 for the extension of the DDA life? Or are we removing that as well? I just want to make sure my notes are correct in updating the budget.
Well, and part of that wasn't just the extension of the DDA life. They were looking at the extension of the water and sewer system to the end of Jackson to Parker, because it doesn't go all the way to the end.
Water does, sewer doesn't.
Right. It doesn't-
So why
water
would
goes
we
up.
have the DDA look at that
Yeah.
and not our
Well, because it's in the DDA.
water
and if-
sewer system
if
as
that-
board?
Working collaboratively with our utility director, if that, we have those two big potential developments that are going in. And if we need to, it was just a study to see what the benefits would be.
Mhm.
I don't like studies just for the sake of studies.
We have talked about creating kind of a water sewer study committee out of the capital plan. I know Brandon and Christy were working on a charge. I mean, I'd be more comfortable if that was something that like,
Oh, yeah, and then we could make an amendment down the road. Because, if they come to the DDA saying you're in the DDA district, or this is what we're gonna do, this is what the study comes back, then, yeah, we could. Can make an amendment later.
okay, would you be comfortable with that if we would then for now remove the 100,000, not that we don't want to look at, water and sewer and all these issues. I just think of it more as, I don't want to delegate authority over the water and sewer system to the DDA. That's my concern.
No, that's not it at all. But, we keep having department heads come to the DDA, say, give us money, but we want to make sure that we understand what we're putting money aside for.
Mhm.
Just like, what was the roads, get clear on that, the fire inspections. Paying for that, we need to get clear on that as well, and those are still in the budget, I believe.
Yeah, but I do think we got clarity on the fire inspection that
Not
they were going
quite.
to. I thought at the DDA meeting, we talked, DDA internal budget meeting that we were at. We talked about, the idea would be that the DDA for a while would pay the inspection fee.
Well, yeah, that's cut and dry, just saying it like that, but there's a lot of nuances to it, so we're actually have that on our agenda for the next meeting, because there could be how the fire department charges, and there's 100,000 a year, who's that gonna go to, the first ones that come? What happens if you run out of that? There's a lot of nuances that we just still don't know. So we're working with the fire department, Chief Sears, on how to put that plan into place.
Okay, so we're clear, we're taking out the $100,000 for the study from the DDA?
Do we have consensus on that?
Yes.
Okay.
So Ally, you hear that? I'm so sorry your camera's not working, Ally.
That's okay. I don't know why, but we'll be fine. Yes,
Okay.
I'll remove the full $300,000 from the budget for consultant fees.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions on proprietary or other funds? Then we'll move to the general fund. Okay. So high level general fund, Clerk Flintoff has provided us a sheet that shows the minimum fund balance for the general fund. We know we have a working deficit over $900,000. Jessica, would you like to explain this?
Sure, and I just
Review?
pull this together real quick. You have columns from 21, 22 forward. The order's a little wonky. It goes amended budget, because happens after the original budget. And then the fiscal year end balance for each, just total revenues, expenditures, net, the difference. So certainly there are several years, the third line, where we have expenditures over revenues. Those are the negative numbers. Then the next lines, you have the beginning and ending fund balance for each of those. We instituted in 2021 a fund balance policy. because in fact, there were many years where we had, I would argue, too much fund balance. It's not good governance to be sitting on money, and there's also, it's very quick, you know, you can very quickly have too little. So our fund balance policy says that we should have 1 year of operating in our general fund. And so that minimum fund balance is in fact that 1 year of operating. You'll see minimum fund balance equals the original budgeted amount. So in this year, our minimum fund balance would be what is currently 7.3 million. You see, we went from, in 21-22, our proposed expenditures were 3.8 million. This year, we're up to 7.3 million. Our minimum fund balance for this year is 11.3 million. That bottom line is just the difference, over, under. So you'll see this year, as is, with what we have currently before us, including the changes made at last Tuesdays with COLA, HVAC, and the officer salaries, we have negative 1.27 million, meaning we are 1.2 million below our minimum fund balance. So we would have a fund balance of 6 million instead of 7.3 million, which is our target. So it's certainly our fund balance policy says one of the stated reasons is for, there's really 3 reasons: an emergency, some extraordinary unplanned legal expense, or a planned, well-planned one-time capital expenditure, which of course is driving a lot of this.
So without changing that policy, we need to trim 1.27 million out of our, correct?
No, without changing the policy, we would need to trim back to the cost of the HVAC, however much the HVAC, that one-time capital, is driving this. So we basically, per our policy, need to reduce any operating costs that are pushing us over. So the HVAC is, what is that, at 8 or 9,000 now?
Yeah, it's more than that. isn't it?
Well, and then
Yeah.
if the Eagle grant and the direct pay doesn't go through, then we'll be on the hook for the 1.6 million. Because
Let's
it's
put in,
kind of scary right now.
put in at 1.6 now.
But there's an offset, because they're
Mm-hmm.
offsetting revenue, assuming.
Offsetting revenue.
Both are in here.
In there as well.
So maybe we should look at the revenue first,
Okay.
because I think you had a comment about that, Kathleen. So top of the packet, it's in 101,265.
I got it.
540. We got the $92,000 eco grant, and 101,265, 687. That's the 603,200. That's the estimated direct pay.
Page are you on?
2.
It's Patrick, page 8.
Oh, packet, 2 of the budget. I got it.
So if you take the 1.6 million number flat minus those 2 grants, that leaves us at $904,800.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
So then if we take $904,800 from the 1.277,
$372,265.
so per our policy, that's how much over we are. Per our
Jessica,
policy. Yeah, Ally?
is that breakout that you're discussing, is that available somewhere for me to look at? I did not see it in the packet agenda online. Is it
I'll
on
email
SharePoint
it.
somewhere? Thank you.
I'll email it to you right now. Yeah, it's just
Thank
from
you.
the GL. Yep.
So what was that number, right?
Sure, that was $372,265.
And again, I just want to say it is a policy. We don't have to follow our own policies. I'm not advising that, but I'm saying it is a policy and not a law. I think we do, you know, just to state that, but also with all of the uncertainty with the federal government and everything that's happening, it's gonna hit the state and the counties and all of us really quickly.
Well, yeah, here's something in roads that's not correct. Oh, wait a minute. So that's all the projects, but
Are we done with that part?
the 372.65
So
or 265.
our goal is to try to cut that out of the 101 budget.
Mhm.
Supervisor Carey, would you like to talk about roads? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, yeah, the numbers are right here and there's, so other than what was the other?
What sheet are you working from?
The summary.
The summary sheet?
Okay. So 101,446 roads.
Here it is. Okay, I was on the right page. Okay, that's post.
These numbers were pulled directly from the latest version of the.
Well, okay, the working approved budget is 545,000.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 321,000 from ARPA grants. I'm just talking about the road, not these, not the 120,000 for the
This
DDA.
is not a reflection of specific funding sources. If you want to
Well,
get,
no, wait, so, but you're saying that we're in deficit, but if we don't have the right numbers.
these are the right numbers.
So Jillian, the revenue for roads is up here on page 3, 101,446,540. This is all the revenue for roads,
What is that total?
441.
Right, so if you take the revenue versus the expenditures you're $91,000 in deficit on roads. In other words, it will take $91,000 out of the general fund to support this budget for roads.
Or 104,000 if I,
Really?
can I correct your math in public? I might be wrong. 545 minus 441. Come on now, that's 104.
You're on page.
Okay,
So
So
it's
it's page 16 of the budget.
okay, I'll take finance for 500, please.
I would agree, 545.
Sorry, that was a joke.
It is, so yes, Jessica is right. It's $104,000
Okay.
with
I would agree.
441,000 in revenue and 545,000 in expenditures.
So we're spending 104,000 in general fund on roads.
That is correct. And that is also an estimate for the transfer in for ARPA. We do not know where ARPA will land at year end. It could be more, it could be less.
I'm gonna recommend that we drop the budget for roads down to the 400 something.
Yeah, and so from my understanding, when I was talking to Clerk Flintoff, this is before we knew about the 321,000 in ARPA, which I'm happy we have. But you had mentioned about, excuse me, $400,000 out of general fund to put towards the roads because we don't have a funding. We need roads. Everybody needs roads, and we need to keep improving some roads. So without that, and that's what I'm a little confused about because there's the 250,000 for Park Road paving project, but that's through the grants.
We took that out.
Yeah, okay, you took
Our
that
right
out.
account.
The board, we did it.
Yeah,
Our
It's
prior
at the
board.
zero.
meeting.
All of
So,
that's zero, but the 120,000, the DDA contribution, those are only for roads within the DDA. And there's no project for that.
so my question on expenditures for roads is 101-446-803.
Yeah, okay.
The roads county contract. In prior years, it was under 400,000. Must we spend 400,000 this year on that, or could we not reduce that?
Okay.
Particularly because the DDA is
Well,
gonna kick in 120.
No, that 120 does not go towards any roads for outside of the DDA. It's all covered.
But in prior years, didn't this 325 include the DDA district?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the other thing I was thinking. We have $71,000 in the township-wide and township-wide SAD. That is, that was supposed to be to zero. There's $71,000 left over. That has to go back into the general fund, but if we had the 321 from the ARPA, the 71,000 from that which we collected for roads from parcel. So that would bring us up to like almost close to 400,000.
But I think that's a cash issue. I think that was something we mentioned on our finance call. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ally, isn't that just the year-end kind of sweep, the leftover money?
Or
I mean,
What
it
are you
was
talking
similar
about?
to the revolving fund.
No,
I mean, not the revolving
no,
fund, the
the-
township-wide SAD fund wasn't fully emptied last year. It's been
That's-
intended.
That's what my understanding is from that.
Correct.
Right?
the
Remember what the funding was?
Township Road Improvement Revolving Fund, Fund 446?
No.
Okay.
This is, but.
Not all at once.
But regardless, Jillian, if there were additional money, what are you suggesting?
So that 71,000 go towards roads. So that would bring up to 392,000. And then that's just for not DDA roads, don't even, or that funding. And then we have the matching grant, which isn't really matching from WCRC, that's 113,000 this year. That would be enough to cover our projects. So here's the other thing that is included, the engineering fees, if I remember, oh yeah, that's for the sidewalk, the Dexter Ann Arbor, 25,000. So I don't know where this 545,000 is coming from, is what I'm,
It's your proposed expenditures.
but right, but this, oh, I see what.
Like at page 22, about
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
3/4 of the way down.
I'm looking at it. So it says 120,000 construction. And what is that for? I don't,
That,
That did get a footnote from the DDA, correct, Ally?
Yes.
yeah, so that is the offsetting of expenditures for the DDA contribution for roads projects. If you have the money coming into the roads, you should also reflect the project or costs or expenditures that are going to be happening with that.
Okay.
That's what that is. So it has a
So-
net impact of 0 on your budget.
right, but that's putting, okay,
If you are looking at what I think you may be looking at in the agenda, it does say no funding source in the 446 roads.
That's
And
my
the-
comment.
And the
Yeah.
working, yeah, the
That's-
working group says 545. So I think maybe what Jillian is saying is maybe it should just be the, well, now I've lost my space on my budget, but it should be it should exclude the 120 since you do have money coming in to cover that. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
gathering everyone is saying?
well, that's what I was, alluding to,
Okay.
because it's saying that we're minus 31.45.
But we've got I think the way it's presented still makes sense, because you've got the 120 here and the 120 there.
Okay,
We
I
still have the deficit.
Yeah, we still have 104,000 of general funding. I guess my question is this, is how much do we think the roads county contract is gonna be? Is it really 400,000? And secondly, where is the county grant reflected in here? Should it be reflected
no, it
in
should
revenue?
not, because that's something that they would only give that to us if we actually did roads.
Well, if we have a budget item for expenditure, then we should include roughly 133,000 as a revenue source. we're planning
Yeah.
to do some projects.
It's 113,000 and we just found out about it.
It's
last week.
133,000.
Do you agree, Ally? That we might include that?
If you know, are you talking about revenue that you'll be receiving for
Mhm.
this? If you
Yeah.
know that you will be receiving it, then yeah, we should update the budget to include that. If you are certain you will be getting it in 25, 26.
Well, only if we spend money on roads
Which we plan on spending money on roads.
for the contract.
It's not money that we receive.
Correct.
Okay, so given that, Rebecca, maybe you have this info, is 400,000, I'm just wondering, isn't that a little too high for doing all that we want to do?
That is the.
Did you get an estimate from the county for
No,
that
because,
400?
because we're still in, we still have, we're still figuring out our road list. But this is based on what we have been spending, kind of an average over the last, however long with the BSAT.
I mean, you
So-
did spend 372,000 in 23, 24, and as of February 27th, you've spent 326 almost. So I don't know that 400 is wildly off base.
Yeah,
But again, I don't know if maybe there were major projects occurring in 23 and 24 that could not be happening in 25, 26 or vice versa. Since it would probably be best to, like, could the county give you an estimate?
They cannot give us an estimate because we provide the road list and they don't need
Okay.
to have their list until May. So we are actually working with them to come up with a list of, because they own the roads. And then we come to an agreement, that's what that yearly agreement is, on which roads, based on our budget, that we will be improving. So the budget came up, throw out a number, we threw out a number, and
Mhm.
based on the average of the 10 years of township-wide improvements under the SAT. And then talking with Clerk Jessica, the 400,000, we can, yeah, the general fund, we have a lot of money. We could use $400,000 for roads.
You know, we just went through a whole exercise.
This was before.
I know, but we have to make some cuts.
I understand. And when I saw this for the 545,000, I was questioning where this was coming from.
it's just the expenditure.
Should match the offsetting revenue from ARPA.
That's
That's what we know we have.
what I
We
would.
can make a budget amendment later if we determine that funding somewhere else.
that-
So
that
I would
would-
lay that out there as a motion that we reduce.
So it'd be the 296, right?
Well. The activity transfer in I show on 101,446,699 is $321,000. Ally, do you still think that number seems realistic for the leftover ARPA?
I mean, I think it's as close of an estimate as you're gonna have right now, given just what I've reviewed. It will change and we will have a better answer, probably closer to year end / getting into audit prep when we go through and clean more items up. But based on what I was able to review a few weeks back, that was as accurate as we were gonna get for right now.
But
So
that's
I
close
think
to the
it's-
audit. So
think
we're
it's
not
fair.
we're not gonna know how much we could use on roads this year then.
Well,
So we're gonna do
We are.
exactly this right now. My motion would be, I propose that for 101,446,699, we keep the balance of $321,000. And we do not dedicate additional general fund funds to roads at this point in time.
I will say.
Okay, the 321.
Friendly amendment,
Sure.
and to then reduce the budgeted expenditure.
Agree with that.
101,446,803 to reduce it by 400 minus 321. 79,000.
Minus the 25,000. if you want to do the study at Dexter Ann Arbor with.
I think that's really important.
Mhm. So just so I have this clear, so it would be a proposed reduction of 101,446,803, reduced by 79,000.
Well, it
And
I would agree with that.
54,000, because there's 25,000 study.
I thought the motion was to,
Oh, you know what, you're right, and then, well. So we're keeping in the 25,000. Correct?
that's the motion, yeah.
And then the road or the county contract itself would
That-
be mine,
That would go down by
79,000,
79,000
okay.
to
Yeah,
321.
never mind.
No, I did. support.
Oh, okay, very good.
Oh, the motion was by.
Gable, support by
Gable,
Grant.
support Grant, okay.
Treasurer gave,
Roll. Treasurer Palmer,
that's disrespectful.
would you like, excuse me, I understand about disrespect. And yes. So if we could get back to focusing on the budget. Okay, so could we do a roll call vote, please, for this motion?
Yes. Flintoff, yes. Grant,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Gable,
Yes.
motion passes 6-0.
Forgot Judy.
No, we didn't forget her. Very sad. Yes, sir, already.
Just kind of lighting it up.
Didn't work.
You gotta try harder, John.
All right.
193,000. 265 is the new deficit. That's 23,000
Okay,
dollars.
does other people have
Yeah, thank you,
other
Ryan.
proposals?
Track up there. Or just on the computer
Just
for us?
keep track of.
All right, thank you.
I have suggestions if other people would like to present theirs. I have no problem with that.
Let's
See.
All right, moving forward, I would like to take out activity transfer transfer to special assessment for improper engineering charges without road improvements. $49,440.
So that's 101,995.
101, 101, 99.
Yeah, 101.
So for 49,440. Yeah, of course, so this is well, I'll wait, you can ask if there's a second, Jim.
I'm sorry, say that again. 101. What was the GL again?
101, 101,995.
Mm-hmm.
I support. Well, I don't, because this happened under special assessments. There was 2 neighborhoods that were charged special assessments for engineering under a special assessment PA 188. By law, PA 188, you cannot charge engineering without the improvement. So these, both of these neighborhoods have been charged for something that they shouldn't have been charged for. So we should be paying them back. It's, what is it, taxation without representation?
So
I mean, and we can, if that was part of the improvement, the overall improvement, and here's the reason why they shouldn't have been charged engineering. Those are public roads. WCRC has its own engineering department, and WCRC should have been included in that process all along. They would have come in there and said, oh, you want, you want this paved, you're gonna have to have ditching, you're gonna have to have curbs and gutters, all of that. And the estimate's gonna be around $500,000. They would have said, oh, more than likely, which they did with this one neighborhood, oh, no, we don't want that. That would be like 25,000 to 30,000 over 10 years. So they said no, but instead the township hired an outside contractor for engineering and went in and had them do the work, the drafting of the engineer process. It comes back with the same amount, 500,000. No, we don't want that. But then they get charged for something that was not an improvement. You cannot charge for an improvement under a special assessment because the special assessment is to provide a special benefit to a parcel, which means it raises the value of the parcel. Engineering does not raise the value of the parcel. So I am not going to support removing this.
I would just make a counterpoint. I would say, I've looked at the law on this and the policy on this. And I would say, you know, the engineering, these were things that the neighbors all signed up to do.
No,
If this was something that the township had imposed unilaterally on people without them all signing up in order to be charged it, I would have a very different perspective.
No.
But this was something that neighbors signed up to do, was consistent with the legal advice that the township received at the time.
No.
In fact, drafted by our attorneys. And I would say, again, you know, getting, you know, kind of digging into this, the policy and the law on this is, I think is on the township side. Well, it's something that I
no,
think
it's
we
not.
would-
And there were
but that
not
we would do
legal, there was not,
differently.
the
we would do-
attorney was
that-
not involved.
that we would do differently procedurally in the future, doesn't mean that the entire township taxpayers should pay for a couple of neighborhoods who got halfway down a process and then
They were not
decided,
guided properly by the
decided
township.
not to pay for the improvement because it was too expensive. You know, certainly if there's a strong case to be made, it could be made with a budget amendment. But I would not support $49,440 of general funds for this purpose at this time.
Are we on
Can
what
I,
number? Fund what, 8 something?
101,995.
Okay, 995, thank you.
so I agree with what Jessica said, but I also, we've done this before. And I'm not saying that makes it right, but it is something we have done previously. But I also want to check in.
Do you remember when we did it, just for the?
No.
Okay, that's okay. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's okay.
Mariah, what were
Yes.
your thoughts on this?
Well, my understanding is the same as Clerk Flintoft's, that it was a neighborhood that came to the township and asked for this special assessment. And that the township went through all of the procedures for that. And after the engineering came back and the cost for the improvement was determined, that the neighbors decided that they didn't want to go forward. So they were, I mean, it's not taxation without representation because they were involved in the process. If my facts are incorrect, I'm happy to look at it again, but that's what I've seen in the record and those are the conversations that I've had. So I don't think that there is a requirement.
Well, and here's something else. In the Park Ridge area, only certain parcels were left out of the SAD. So other parcels had to pay. And then if the improvement went along, so then they would bring in. But the thing is that it wasn't done properly. They cannot be charged under a special assessment. Some of them are still paying for their $600 or whatever, and they're getting interest every year. I mean, it's just totally wrong. And there's nothing wrong with fixing a mistake.
I'm all for fixing a mistake. I mean, I remember when we were taking legal fees from the water and sewer funds.
That's right, and I
And
was
I-
the one
and
that
I-
found that.
And I brought it to the board, $300,000 to make that right. So I'm not, you know, anything we need to make right, I'm happy to make it right. But this is just not something that I believe we've done wrong.
I agree.
Well, you
So
need to
did I
read
make
PA
that
188.
Did I make that motion and you seconded, or how did that go?
Yes.
For the benefit of us who got lost in the fight, could you bring back the motion again? Or repeat
The
it?
motion is to remove from the budget, Fund 101, Department 101, 995, $49,440.
May I interject quickly? There's also offsetting transfers into those special assessment funds and expenditures as well.
Yes.
That should be updated and removed if that is the approach you're going to take, just as an FYI.
Sally, how much does that amount to, the other ones?
It's the same, whatever is listed as a transfer in or out of the general fund is listed as a transfer in, and then a refund as well. So it's going to be the same amount. I think it's like 30,000 in one special assessment and then 14 or 15 in the other.
This sake of moving this meeting along, can we do a roll call vote?
Of course. We can, we don't have to.
Jillian, you're supposed to be running the meeting.
Well. Yes, that's true. According to others, when it is. I'm supposed to be running the meeting, but that doesn't always happen. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Flintoff, yes. Grant,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Carrie,
No.
Gable,
Yes.
motion passes 5-1. I have a motion. I think it's an easy one. A motion to remove $22,000 from 101-101-959 public contributions. It is duplicated in 101-101-823.
Support by Riser.
So 101-101-959 public contributions is a account we really shouldn't be using because we aren't supposed to give public contributions. It was the account that we used to book the payment for services to the Dexter Senior Center to, that is now proposed in 101-101-823. So you'll see $22,000 in two places.
823.
You supported, John?
I did.
So it'll stay under 101-101-823, and then you're removing it from.
I'm
Or,
proposing to
proposing.
remove the duplicate entry in public contributions.
Under the 9.5.
Yeah, 959.
Are you ready for a vote?
I'm gonna do it by voice vote.
Up to Jillian.
Voice vote, please, or roll call vote, please.
Flintoff, yes. Grant,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Gable,
Yes,
motion adopted 6-0.
we're down to 221-825 as of 5:32.
All right,
Okay, I would like to make a motion in account 101, Department 228-823, contracted services under technology. Remove $16,000 for Scio Township email and SharePoint access for committee members.
Support.
So what's the rationale for that?
Where's this again?
I have a-
228.
What page or,
Can you
Page
say,
nine
Page 9 of the budget.
thank
can you
you.
say the account number, please? I'm so sorry.
228-823.
And I have some new info from Julio today.
Okay.
I'm happy to add. I spoke with Julio this afternoon, and he actually had a couple other items he wanted me to raise in 101-228. I got clarification on this one. It says, and I think, Ally, it may just be the way the footnote's written. It says it's $16,000 for committee members to have Scio Township email and SharePoint access, which, you know, this is one of the cost allocated departments, by the way. So, you know, and that's kind of a big policy jump. So for $16,000, he clarified for me that $16,000 would be the cost to have those extra 80 committee members and our 50 staff to continue to have those accounts. So it's for everybody. So, so I am not in support of cutting this at this point because it seems to be poor, maybe a footnote we could improve. Julio explained that this was the cost for everyone to have email and SharePoint access. I would want to, down the road, look at any potential proposal to expand the number of users we need to support since we're already so stretched. But would not support eliminating this at this time without more information.
So we don't know, what the ratio is.
I don't, and he didn't.
Can we wait then?
So this is the budget process. When it's time to make this as appropriation, it comes before the board.
Any authorization, yeah, and I would just suggest if we're changing our policy to start issuing emails to volunteers, that would be I'd really recommend the board kind of look at that and say yay, nay, and look at the cost.
But that's true for the rest of the budget too, that everything, well, a lot of things need to come in front of the board for a vote, correct?
Yeah, for authorization, but this would just be one area where we would need to kind of consider a policy, a new policy. Okay. But there is a motion on the table.
Who supported?
Gable?
Roll call, please.
Read the motion.
Yeah, a motion to eliminate $16,000 from 101-228-823.
Showing 0.
This, no, and Ally, maybe we can, if you,
Yeah.
Ally, if you'd be so kind to carry the footnotes over. But that 16,000 is what we're talking about, Jillian.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Roll call, please.
Flintoff, no. Grant?
Based on your feedback, no.
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 Riser?
No.
Carrie?
No.
Gable?
No.
Motion fails.
Um,
0 to 6, we don't have those very often.
I know we worked on cost of employees and fringe a lot, but I was gonna bring up the point of we have not posted for finance director yet. Could we cut a quarter worth of salary off by the time it comes to the board and we do a hiring process? It would likely be 2 to 3 months, depending on our board schedule and the recruiting process. Both that and I believe the director of operations could be something just some of that cost reduction or the budget, but I do realize that there's calculations and other things done which may impact my suggestions, so.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I'll speak to 101-191, and then I do want to hop back to 228 when we can. 101-191, I just wanted to clarify. Clarify a footnote under 101-191-823. The contracted services include finance director services, actuarial services, and administrative audit. So I just want to, and Judy had noted that too, the actuarial services, but those are actually for those 3 And certainly, Ryan, the contract with Plant Moran would end as soon as we get a finance director. I just got a draft job description yesterday from Romberg. Gonna review it internally and have it posted at a upcoming meeting very quickly. So I do think it would be reasonable to have the finance director salary reduced to 3/4 of the year. So instead of April 1, July 1, does that make sense?
Makes sense to
Okay.
me. It'd be a cost savings of approximately 31,250 in salary. Plus associated cost.
Can we do that by consensus?
Sure. Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the director of operations. Not address that one right now.
No, that's a good idea, John. I mean, it's posted right now,
So,
so
Where's that? That'd be 172.
It's a question for the group. I just looked at it as a possibility since it is a higher budget at 130,000 once again. If we were even to take 2 months off of that. Divide by 12, to $21,666. It does help.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we're not doing interviews by April.
Well, so the purpose of this is to have a balanced budget. But then we're saying that, well, when we get the finance director, then we're gonna ask for an amendment or whatever. and
No, I
that's
didn't
going-
say that.
I'm just trying to clarify here. So then that would throw the budget off, then it wouldn't be balanced?
we might,
Because we might,
we're not likely going to spend the money because we won't have those people on staff. So if we've allocated a full year of their salary, that's likely an over projection on the expense side because he or she won't have started for a while. So that's what I think
I
we're
see what
trying
you're
to,
saying.
we're trying to
Okay.
reconcile their actual start date. That's what we're trying to do. And save some revenue to balance in the budget.
Mhm.
That's what we're trying to do, Julie.
well, yeah, because it would still be spent somewhere, assuming.
Sorry?
It would still be in a fund, we're just not spending it.
Right.
Right.
And hopefully we'll spend that money someday
Soon.
and get the help that we need.
No offense, PM Gap, you've been great. But
People are dropping your voices quite a bit,
Oh.
so it's difficult for the audience to hear sometimes.
Sorry,
oh,
we will try to project.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. So shall we, 101, 172, 706 full-time employee salaries for the director of operations, should we reduce that by 2 months?
I support that.
I'd support that.
By proclamation, I would hope consensus.
21,666.66.
all in,
So reduced by 2 months? And what's your estimate there, Brad?
$1,666.66. Which, once we subtract that from our last amount, we are now at a $168,908.34.
All right. I would like to talk about 228. I just want to relay a couple of things. Julio and I touched base about. He's been getting more information. Well, first of all, question, Ally, the camera system for the pump stations and Township Hall and everything that's in our capital plan. I was looking for that in our 101 budget and not seeing it. I expected to see it in 101, 228.
Let me check.
Thank you. It was in there in prior year budgets, and I know it's in our capital plan.
Where is it in the capital plan? Is it under buildings and grounds or water and sewer?
It's in-
Oh, security cameras at booster stations? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well. Yes, and there was the township hall
So
security camera project as well. It was in prior years as well as I thought this year, but maybe we missed it.
currently not in this year, could have been in prior years, but it does not appear to be in the current year capital plan, so it would not be reflected in the budget. The only one I see is the WNS 03 security cameras at booster station and vaults, 50% water, 50% sewer for $30,000 this year. So
Yeah,
that is
I see
split
that.
50-50 there, but I don't see anything related to the township hall.
So I think we have a disconnect because I know Christie just got a bid that we'd gotten a proposal 18 months ago. She was following up from with the transition and IT directors, but it was for 30,000 for township hall. And I think what we had 2 years ago was 30,000 as a placeholder for the whole project.
I thought 60 was high.
That may be unrealistic, but I'm just saying, I think that's why it got lost here. So, I would just say I don't think we should try to, I mean, I think we should put something in the general fund for that project because we've had it in there. We've intended to do it. I know Christie's looking at, some bids for it as well. So I don't know if that would correctly be in 228 or maybe it's in 265, Ally.
Probably 265.
Probably 265. So,
That's where the new office furniture is, so if you are gonna have a camera system set up, I
Okay.
think it should go there too.
if I could suggest we look at 101, 265, building and grounds. I would just propose as a placeholder, since the last we heard was 30,000, I'm hoping that's way too high. I would propose 30,000 because that is the bid I just saw. And Ally, would that be in 980 equipment?
Yes, that's where I would put it.
Okay, so I have a proposal to add $30,000 to 980 for the security camera project. No, adding was not what we intended to do.
I got some more stuff.
I'm
I
sorry.
got some more stuff to
Sorry.
add too, so we'll get there.
So
See.
for under equipment, it says office furniture. So you're adding another 30,000 to,
Yeah, I'll just
Another-
make a motion to add $30,000 to 101, 265, 980 equipment for a total of $60,000 for the purpose of implementing a security camera project.
I'll support that.
voice vote, please. Oh, he's gone. I guess, consensus, is that okay?
If we could just do voice votes, let's give a motion.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, well, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? None. Motion passes.
I have one here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have, one that I'm not sure this is correct. This is under planning, 101,701. It's consulting fees. $15,000. I'm wondering if that should be zeroed out because it says previous planner office hours moved to line 817,300. It just looks to me like this didn't get zeroed out.
That's a good question, Ally, and I'm sorry Christy isn't here tonight. Ally, do you have any other notes on that? Was that for somebody other than Carlisle Wortman?
I don't know, but I am trying to pull up from our department meeting notes, so
Rebecca?
I can let you know. But it is possible, I just forgot to zero it out, but I will double check.
Wait. I'm sorry, Rebecca, we couldn't hear you.
J-Rod work is also charged to that account. And planning work that's not office hours. The notes seem to imply.
Oh, I wonder if, here's my assumption. Previously, we had budgeted close to $75,000. And I am just wondering if the drop from 75 to 15, and then the note explaining why the drop is that the previous planner hours that used to be in here in fiscal year 23, 24, and 24, 25 is moved to account 817.300. Because if you do 52 and 15, that gives you close to what we used to budget before. So I think the 15 is probably correct. And the footnote is just explaining the drop from previous years.
Remember, the hours have actually increased recently. That's why I'm,
So we have one
But-
day in planning and one day in zoning.
okay.
Yes.
So Rebecca, do you have any other ideas what that 15K might go to? Do we have us?
There's regular. It's charged to that account that it's not office hours. So that 15 should be there.
So Rebecca's recommending that 15 stay, that's regular planning time, so I would imagine that's what, like running the planning commission meetings, those sorts of things?
They bill separately for all the different planning work than her office hours. And what you're moving is just her office hours. That's a separate charge that.
Speak up a little.
Or
bit.
actually Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind sitting up here, if you're gonna be answering questions, because honestly, like Ally won't be able to hear you at all.
Okay.
So, thank you.
So if it's not a mistake, that's fine. Let's move forward.
Yeah, I do not, after looking further, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it is just breaking out her actual office hours for the day that she's in.
One oh one, 823, GCSI.
42,000?
What page?
Page
Page 5.
5.
I know there were several of us who wanted to keep the GCSI contract as it was. And I believe this reflects the annual contract fee. What's the number again?
101, 823, contracted services and GCSI. It's like, I appreciate the work GCSI has done for us, but I also appreciate we're still $198,908.
Well, we could also utilize GCSI to bring in more money that would potentially lower our budget. I mean, big ticket items.
They have
I
contributed
support-
substantially in the past.
Okay,
I-
motion by Maple, support by Flintoff.
I just wanted to make a comment. I think that, you know, this is like, I think they can do very good work. They have helped us a lot. I really think this year is different at the state level. I do not expect, you know, I mean, I think earmarks and things, it's a different environment than we're in right now. To spend $42,000 a year, I think most likely what we'd be eligible, most likely able to get some funding for our fire department, which would be fantastic. But I think we have a lot of those relationships. I would say we, year over year, have said we want to develop a policy platform, some priorities, to better utilize them. So it's not that they don't do good work. I think they do, Kathy. But I think given what we're in right now, I would much rather get our HVAC system done and do some other things, rather than support the 42,000 a year for DCSI.
I think this amount more than paid for itself historically over the last several years. And I agree, we're in tough times right now. We could do this on a month-to-month basis and give it 6 months and see. But I mean, we're currently on a month-to-month basis with them.
That's true, at what, 3,300, I think?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I don't want to just, curtail our relationship with them completely. Because I think they have helped us tremendously.
Yeah, 42,000, 750,000 for the fire truck minus 42,000. So that's, a
So
couple.
a friendly amendment to cut it in half for 6 months.
Authorize it for 6 months and then review at a board meeting.
So go month to month for 6 months and then review again in 6 months.
I'd be supportive of
Okay.
that.
I would, yeah, I'd support that. I'd withdraw the motion, withdraw my support for Ryan's motion. Do you somebody wanna make a revised motion?
To support 101, 823 GCSI with a 6 month,
Month to month.
month to month understanding, it's not an agreement, but, which would reduce our deficit by $21,000.
Will someone let them know that the nature of the relationship, the representation, all that, is changing?
It's not changing. We're already month to month. We're out of
Okay.
contract.
We've been month to month.
But the amount that we,
We may be changing it. I mean, we haven't decided tonight that we're changing it.
all
But
right,
I'll get in contact with them
Sure.
this week.
So this would reduce it from 42,000 to 21,000.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking of, we need a voice vote or just consensus for this? Oh,
We have a motion, so
motion,
it needs a
yeah, that's right. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Oppose, none, motion passes. Don't want to cut off our nose to spite our
I don't
face
either.
no. 100%.
with anything.
You have another one?
I have another one. 101, 266, 826. Page 15, how about you? 101, 266, 826. We currently have this legal fees general ledger item is $310,000. We could solve the budget at least one way, by reducing that by $180,000, and then we would have a balanced budget with a small surplus.
I would support that. I did a summary document. And I've included percentage change from prior year that was based on the amended budget. And some of these things could be, those areas could be targets for how to reduce.
So where are you exactly?
I am 101, 266, 826. It says state VSK legal fees. It's right above Department 270 Human Resources. It's budget page 15 and packet
I've
page
got
21.
it.
So we've got 510,
In
510,
legal.
$510,000
Mhm.
total for, and then you're talking about 310,000, which I proposed and I came up with the estimate of.
Mhm.
For the defense for State v. Carey is 310.
Mhm.
About 180,000 is general. It's kind of our estimate,
Mhm.
and then 20,000 we're estimating for Gelman.
Mhm.
That's, I don't.
Thought we had
see-
Gilman somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I thought we did too.
No, we've got, if you go from the top, 180,000 is for kind of our estimate of our year-round kind of costs, 160.
We do have Gelman up above. It's the same fund number, 101-266-826.000.
And then it's also Kathleen. If you see, it's also down below there. Do you see those little dashes? It says dash Gelman. So it's 180 plus 20 plus 310. That's how we get to 510.
And I agree and I understand that. I was specifically looking at the last line, 310 of that to balance the budget.
So remember, I brought the issue to the board that Ann Arbor will be pursuing issues related to the dioxane drinking water standard, and Bill Staple had wanted us to remain somewhat engaged as that evolved. Nothing has happened with that though.
Mhm.
But so in terms of Gelman, I think that we had talked about a total of $20,000 previously.
Yeah.
And I would note our other attorney work is spread across funds when it's
Mhm.
direct. This is just the general fund attorney work. So when like Think and Think or, Thacker invoices come in, we code it if there's anything specific to say it's occasional water and sewer or.
I guess to clarify, I'm not talking about any of the 1, 2, 3, 4. First 4 items, the general legal fees, just budget for 180,000. There's a separate line for Arbery's Grove for whatever reason, even though it's talked about in the footnote on the first line. Okay, whatever. I'm not talking about the Flintoff line, which is the 3rd line, or the Gelman line. I'm specifically
Okay.
talking about the 5th line, which is budgeted for $310,000 by itself. As part of that,
And what are you proposing to do with that amount?
Reduced by $180,000, balance our budget and end the meeting unless we have other things to discuss.
So remember, Arbery Grove is now referred to as Innovent with their appeal.
Yep, that's fine.
I supported that, didn't
You did.
So explain the ramifications of that.
I think what that would do is it would drop the 310,000 to 130,000. There's currently no activity in that, sorry, to take that back, there's a current year activity in that account, but there's none in our year that hasn't begun yet as of April 1st. But it would set up our budget for that account as of our fiscal year to be $130,000 instead of 310.
Yeah, isn't that the resolution that you presented to me earlier?
No, it's actually different amount, more money than the resolution that we discussed.
Well-
In a privileged meeting.
So I'll just share, I mean,
Which you're gonna try and put in front of the board, so, or in front of the public.
So I came up with this budget, I mean, given that
Sure.
it's a great unknown. And, but kind of estimated out based on what the invoices we had received out for,
Mhm.
12 months and another kind of 3 months of intensive work, expert fees, So I will say, I think it's, realistic if it's a, sort of 12-month. I mean, it's a question of kind of how much we want to budget is realistic. And then, how we deal with kind of the fiscal impact of this. I mean, what we've done so far is we've approved each resolution, I think twice. We've approved resolutions. 2 times we've approved resolutions. For a claim for payment. And then as, you know, these go on, we do need to figure out a way to, you know, contain the township costs in some way. We have submitted this, as everybody knows, to insurance twice and have been twice denied. I think in our meeting with Kevin, he said he was gonna do another review.
A third party review, yep.
A third party review of that. So we're gonna keep looking at that, but we do need to somehow, you know, get a handle on costs.
It's pretty hard to say when you're going through a case and the court has the jurisdiction and process and whatnot, so.
Do we have to decide this now, though?
Well, we're trying to balance the budget.
I think,
But even though
I
we-
think there's a couple things you could look at. One would be, we could decide the budgetary aspect of it now, because there still is the resolutions that have authorized claims for payment. So you resolve your budget now, you can then look at the budget amendment if and when costs exceed what you budget. That makes sense? To add,
I
to
hear
the,
what you're
to the
saying.
logistical end of the question,
Hear what
not
you're
say the
saying.
policy into the question.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I just looked at it as a single large line item that we could reduce. I'm not saying.
It is now the time. That's my question, different question. And to pose it now at this budget discussion is kind of difficult because it doesn't lend itself to a quick answer right now. This is more of a policy issue.
If any, I've run out of my suggestions. Does anybody else have suggestions? If not.
I guess the only other thing I might suggest is, you know, kind of like the GCSI, kind of cutting it down to 6 months. And reevaluate that 180 down to 90. But I don't know. I mean, you know, I hope that, you know, we can, I know there's, you know, Jillian and a couple others have been talking about ideas about what we might do, but we really do need to get a handle on this somehow.
And I agree with that.
And
I
there's
just
a-
don't know if this is the time right here. I mean,
I respect that. I think the biggest part of it is if we have other suggestions that move you around.
Yeah, but the idea, it
Yeah,
just can't be, it just can't be nothing, right? We can't just have, you know, no ideas gonna work.
So when is the sheriff contract up for renewal?
2 years. We're in,
It's a 2-year.
it's a 3-year, but we're in year 2 of 3. So we have a motion by Gable, support by Brandt to reduce from 310 to 130.
And is that for to reimburse?
That's specifically for budgeted reimbursement to Supervisor Carey for her criminal defense.
So this is beginning April 1st. Correct?
Correct. This is the April 1st, so when I would ballpark it out, you know,
So it would take it from 180 to what?
From 310 to 130.
310 to 130.
and these would be for expenses incurred April 1 forward, so let's just think about this out loud together, so we're on the same page. Expenses incurred before would have to be paid for out of this fiscal year.
Outside of this
budget.
scope, outside of this scope.
Right, and so for services incurred through March, they would need to be addressed with fiscal year-end budget amendments. Rebecca and Ally are hearing what I'm saying. Thank you. For this fiscal year. Anything the board decides to reimburse.
And that's, so is that gonna be sufficient funds?
I think it's reasonable.
That wasn't his question.
No, it is the same question.
He said sufficient.
It's the same question, in my opinion.
Yeah, but if you're facing the charges and you've got people working on your behalf, what you think is reasonable when you're under the gun is, might be different than us who are sitting detached, looking at it from a budget, perspective, so.
So John, I had estimated 12 months of work at 15,000 a month, plus 3 months of intensive work at 30,000 a month. Imagining a possibility of a trial, plus expert fees, again, of 40,000. I budgeting high to be conservative, but also in line with the cost, so it's hard to say.
Well,
I don't know if there's any more insight at this juncture about these
If no one
numbers.
has any more suggestions on the rest of the budget, then I think we should do this. Do you guys have anything else?
I had a couple others, but
Do you?
they're smaller.
Yeah, I have small things.
Yeah,
I would take out the $40,000 for the vehicle based on the budgets that are presented. Their mileage is less than 5,000 miles. I don't think the vehicle's just.
it's just not mileage. They're using their own vehicles and breakdown and flat tires and we do have in our policy that the employees are to use township vehicles for local travel.
and just a point of order, we have a motion on the table, so I don't know if you wanna
Oh,
put
it's
a,
for the,
put a pause in it, if you wanna withdraw it at this point, continue
That's
discussion on
fine, we can
others.
get to discussion on others.
Okay,
I do look at it and see if that we don't come up with this, we're gonna have to do something.
well, we could come back to it
Yeah,
later
we
in the
can.
discussion if you want.
Sure.
So do you two withdraw that motion?
Yes.
For now, it's fine. Yep.
Okay, for now. Another thing that we could do, and I did want to share this, and it's noted in a helpful little footnote.
page are you on?
The top, first page, 101,000,665 interest earnings. Clerk notes that may change pending policy recommendation from treasurer and clerk. So kind of big picture, we could completely resolve this deficit in the general fund with the implementation of a policy that allocates interest differently. So, Daryl, hold on. I'm not proposing this right now. No, it's good. I know, you're gonna hate this, Daryl, so just hang on. Everybody's gonna hate it. But I did wanna bring this up, quite honestly. So there's, a short list of things that I kept thinking, we'll look at this when we have a new treasurer. So here we are, right? So there's, doing a lot of things differently. Ryan's doing a fantastic job. So one of the things we wanted to look at was the law related to where interest from earnings is supposed to be deposited. So by law, under the treasurer's statute, all interest from all funds is to be deposited in the general fund. Okay.
Does that include proprietary funds?
Yes. And I've confirmed this with Mariah. So I just want to state that is the law about where the treasurer must deposit funds. It is then the policy determination of this board of how we allocate that interest. What we've done, like a lot of things, is, we had always deferred that kind of policy function to this budget process and through, Rebecca does a monthly allocation of interest based on the principal that's earning that. So, like water and sewer are the big ones. Some of the smaller funds, like, parks or DDA. But certainly, when you look at these numbers, we're talking about huge numbers. So I'm not proposing to make any change right now. But I do want to say in the coming year, I think that that's something that we could look at. Right now, what is proposed in the budget implied here is to continue allocating interest proportionate to the principal that's earning that interest. So Rebecca goes through each month and says like, hey, the funds invested for 208 are earning this much, that'll stay with 208, et cetera, et cetera. But I just want to say that's a determination of the board. We're making that decision to give back the interest from the general fund every single month. And it's a lot of interest, right? And, you just look at, I don't know, even say the public transit fund. Well, the public transit fund isn't so much, Ryan. That's $8,300. The fire fund.
So did I hear you correctly that if we use the interest,
54,000, yeah.
54,000.
wouldn't have a deficit? Or this would be able to pay for?
No, because it takes it out of other.
Yeah, it would, but it would take care of the general fund deficit.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm not proposing that at the table, and it wouldn't be something, suddenly it would be something the board would develop a policy on. 208, 45,000. Certainly, I think from a policy perspective, there's an argument to be made that, some of the interest, if not all of it, should stay with our enterprise funds. But it's a policy choice that the board has about interest. So that's flagged as something we can talk about, but that certainly would resolve it.
Are we talking about millage, mostly millages?
Yeah, all the interest, yeah, from anything in a bank account or investment.
No, but I mean, is the lion's share of it come from like a PPP millage or an LPC millage?
The biggest,
Or-
B206.
Or,
the biggest single fund with interest is probably water and sewer.
Mhm.
or water, and so, okay,
But that DDA is probably the second,
okay,
Yeah, the DDA.
and the third might be the general fund as it is.
okay.
I'm not proposing to change this at all either right now. There is probably an argument, at least for part of it. There's lots of arguments about
Yeah.
lots of different funds.
Mhm.
Water and sewer has an immediate argument in my mind because it's only service to some people and not
Right.
all. So the money likely should at least in some way, shape or form probably follow the fund.
And it,
We can talk about that.
right,
There's a lot of things that need to be discussed about it, but
I'm just throwing that out there. We talked about where the kind of big number of savings, easy big numbers. It's big numbers, not easy, requires conversation, but I think it should be.
Prepared to do that tonight.
No, but I just want to say that I think over the coming year, I want us all to dig in and start to look at this.
You say savings, but it's really a reallocation of revenue. Allocation of revenue that might have prior gone to water and sewer, because it's earned by water and sewer. Now gets earned by water and sewer funds, but then gets,
Stays in the general fund.
gets attributed towards general fund.
Mhm.
And that'll impact the component budgets, won't it? Won't that have?
Yes, but they're not in deficit, but that's correct. It would, it would remove or reduce.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's a policy decision we make, whether we know we make it or not. We make it every single year to do it that way. You don't have to.
Can you please make sure that myself, Melanie, or Brian are included in that conversation when
Absolutely.
it's had?
Sure.
Yep.
Because
And
I
I'm
think
not
we,
proposing anything tonight. I'm just saying that
yeah.
this would be something the board can look at.
I think we should look at this sooner than later. And Ryan, you were, I know you've been so busy with taxes and whatnot. Have you reviewed our investments? Have you already, or is that on your?
We have basically two main forms of investing.
Can you speak up?
Sure. So we have two main forms of investing that we currently invest in. We buy commercial paper through Ameriprise, which is a brokerage agency. There's been several pieces of that they generally last about 260 to 269 days until they mature. We bought several pieces of that since I took office in November, probably 4 or 5 off the top of my head. And then we also have Money in Michigan Class, which is like a money market account, but it buys commercial paper. It buys probably over $10 billion of commercial paper because people like the city of Detroit, Grand Rapids, Washington County, all have money in that.
You know, and certainly like fees are another thing. We'll be, refreshing the utility rate study, coming up with some recommended increases for utility fees. But planning and refreshing the fire fees, planning fees are something, we have targeted to look at by June 30th. So that'll help a little bit with potential revenue for the general fund.
We do have the same zoning compliance charge since 1999. I found a copy of it the other day.
And I was told by Laura Krebs that you had gone to Pittsfield Township with a few other people and looked at how they were doing planning, billing, which compared to Scio, they're using an escrow account.
Yes, and I wanna go in that direction. We just need more
Yeah.
support internally at the time. We just need to.
That'll help us to get more of our fees back.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so that's not on the table.
I'm not putting it on the table right now. I just want to share that because we've talked about that, but I didn't know if everybody fully understood what that footnote meant as a,
All right, so if that's not on the table, I have more things here, but they're cuts.
okay.
I mentioned the vehicle, $40,000. I do not see it's justified based on the mileage. The mileage is so low that having a vehicle, and I'm also including code enforcement.
So are you talking assessing vehicles?
It's would be a general, considered a township vehicle for $40,000.
So that's in 101-901. I mean, I have to say, I've looked at the mileage too. Rebecca's run it for us several times. It's like $1,000 or something-ish. I mean, it's barely any, and that's at the full mileage reimbursement.
76 a month.
Right, the argument, it certainly wouldn't be for financial reasons that we would do it. So then I say, well, why would we do it? Is there a security need? I know Sean, when he was code enforcement officer, had talked about that possibility. And again, I think some of that's policy, some of it's personal preference. And then also, I know there's a concern of one of your assessment staff who leases a vehicle. I respectfully, think the mileage rate from the GSA is more than fair, pays for maintenance. I do have I think if we had, extra cushion in our general fund, or if I thought it was really going to get used a lot, but I just don't see it being used very much. And so while I wish I could support this because, people want it and feel like it would make their jobs easier, I just don't see a justification for it from a financial point of view or from, you know, safety or anything like that.
So do I have support for that?
Murphy,
I would support.
This is
yes, go ahead.
Just wanted to say, because I don't know if Andrea is here, and I'm not speaking on her behalf by any means. I know she has her own reasons, but I do think that it does feel a little bit flippant to say that you don't agree with, especially from the point of view of an employee who is leasing a vehicle. It doesn't matter how much you reimburse them for their mileage. It's not about the cost in that case, because for every mile you go over in your lease, it's quite a bit more than that. I've leased a vehicle before, and those fees really affect people.
the fees, I have researched this. If you go over your lease amount, it's anywhere from 15 to 25 cents a mile. So let's take the 25 cents a mile. We're paying 70 cents a mile. This is not flippant, as you said. We are trying to do a reasonable budget for our taxpayers.
I disagree, and as someone who actually has leased a vehicle in the past, it adds up very quickly. And it's not just it's an extra per mile, but you also receive a fee when you go over your leased agreement of mileage. It's not just that 15 cents, it's quite a bit more long-term. And I just want to say one last thing is it's not just about making people's jobs easier. It's each person in the assessing department has made it very clear that they believe that this is an important tool to do their jobs. And I just think it's important to listen to the people who are saying, these are the tools I need to do my job. Thank you.
But I just want to say, I think we need an HVAC system
Yeah.
more. I mean, this is a tough year.
I
where
don't
we've got
want
to-
to open this up to, this is
And we could
board
look at-
deliberations,
We
please.
could also look at different HVAC systems that could possibly be less money.
The research is in and they were both 1.6
No,
million.
that second one was just a guesstimate from that company. We do not know based on how much that would be.
I would like to get out of this meeting at a reasonable time. I'm sorry, but this is a board deliberation.
Brandon, go ahead. I am the moderator of this meeting.
I truly respect this as a board decision, and I just think that some information may help the board make a decision. So currently, right now, utilities paid for their vehicles out of the utilities fund. Our code enforcement officer has been borrowing utility trucks to do his job. Building and grounds has used it as well. Utilities now on the back left of the utility director's truck, that's kind of just what I'm labeling it. It's not just for me, but on that truck, there has been a dent put in it by a general fund worker. So,
Not helping your argument.
well, what I'm trying to say is that it was paid for completely out of the utility fund.
Right.
And we've had damage done by general pool or general fund people to our utility vehicles already on 2 pieces of equipment. And so when you look at it in that way, is the direction that I need to continue to try to facilitate letting other people use a utility vehicle in order to do their job as well? And if that's the direction, that's okay. It's just not a typical thing to do is to lend out vehicles from a utility pool for general fund usage and then have them ruin the equipment or damage the equipment. It is just something, additional cost that we're gonna have to bear. And
And the general fund should bear the cost of those repairs, for sure.
understand, but in these circumstances, I needed to use the vehicle and I wasn't able to because I lent it out to Sean. Or not Sean, the code enforcement officer to do the work. And then I ended up needing to use it and I don't have my vehicle that I budgeted for. I showed Christy the damage and we walked around and we had a brief conversation about it. That was it. So I haven't heard anything back from it, but that's why these vehicles were bought for utilities is because we need them, not to lend them out and then incur damage or not be able to use them when we need it.
and paid for by municipal water and sewer customers.
Right.
And we,
And I definitely, I think one of the main thing that you guys should be looking at when you guys are determining your budget is employee retention and employee satisfaction. $40,000 is something that I think should be a priority and not one of the least things that you're looking at, especially with multiple employees requesting it. I would think that would be one of the top considerations, not one of the least considerations that you would make. I don't think that should be something that you guys don't budget for. I think it's gonna be definitely used quite a bit. It's gonna be professional. And it's something that's greatly needed.
thank you, Brendan.
Absolutely.
So did I get support for that motion or not? We'll move on.
Yes, I supported it.
Roll call vote, please.
Flintoff? Yes. Grant?
Yes.
Noel?
No.
Riser?
No.
Harry?
No.
Yeaple?
Yes.
3-3, motion fails.
Okay. All right, in technology, 101-228, education and conferences. There's $7,000 in here. for Training GMIS conference. I'm gonna suggest we get that out.
220, what?
The 7,000.
Yeah.
Kathleen, that was reduced initially.
I understand it
Yeah.
was, this is specific to,
Yeah, okay, excuse me.
this is, I believe, a conference in northern Michigan for 3 days.
Is that correct, Ally?
I don't know what the conference is for, other than what's in the notes.
It's government municipal information services, I believe is the GMIS. I did look it up.
So we had asked Christy to go back to the drawing board because this raised concerns of equity for me, 20,000 for one staff person, down to 7. Do you have any more details on this, Rebecca? Okay,
If you have concerns about equity, $7,000 for one person versus $500 for another.
absolutely.
So, but I'm just trying to get to a place where we can approve this budget on March the 11th.
I agree.
Agreed.
It's not fun, but necessary.
So this is online, this is ArcGIS training?
No, I believe the ArcGIS training was what was removed, the 13,000 from the initial 20,000
Oh, I see.
requested.
Mhm.
So the 7,000
see.
is for online training and then what Kathleen was saying.
And this is for our tech.
For Julio, yeah. The IT specialist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand, and he is still. So okay, regarding that, we had Chris as our IT director, and then Julio. And now Julio is in that, well, not director, but. So he's doing everything that Chris was doing?
No, I mean, there's a lot not being done. What we said was we would spend a few months. I mean, just as we're redoing kind of the finance positions, finance director and how to, kind of share the utility billing finance functions. We're gonna take a deeper look at that as well as the IT. I think we said that we'd put some concerted effort into that. So right now, the IT specialist is the one position we have. With a commitment that we were gonna look at it. But this 7,000 number is for one person. I mean, I understand he and Christy felt strongly about it, that it was important, but I don't have the details.
Yeah, I don't
Of
have,
what it is.
and I would just hate to cut something that's really important. I guess we can always make a budget amendment, but it's too bad we can't get the input from Julio, because
You know, I support keeping this in here just because I know Christie felt like that was the right number. And I trust Christie, but I am persuaded, Kathleen, by your point about equity. It does kind of stick out there. Rebecca, for another person, have we ever budgeted 7,000? Okay,
When Sandy and, oh, Rebecca, I think you were going to New Orleans.
they didn't make it.
Yeah, I
pandemic.
know, because of the pandemic, but do you
It was
remember how much that was?
We got a free thing, because it was our first year.
Oh,
Yeah, nothing close to that.
well, yeah, and we don't know what this training actually entails, and we can't say, well, the Parks Director needs training and it's only $2,000, and since it's not equal to the training of the IT amount, then it just, again, we want our, I'm all for education.
You have additional suggestions to the tune of $180,000 to get this in order?
Well, and here's the thing, is that if I understand correctly, the budget, as long as the funds are the money in the funds, if that is, that's where this is just a budget. So it doesn't have to be exactly perfect because it is a fluid document, as long as we are not budgeting the funds that we don't actually have. And then we have funds.
But I would say that Jillian, we, you know, we have a policy, definitely there's no state law that says we have to. The policy, you know, it says, you know, we want to not dip in past our minimum fund reserves. And I say, especially now, I mean, the world is on fire. Okay, the state shared revenue, no, for real. $2.2 million is what we get in state shared revenue. If
Okay,
the
then
state takes a hit,
maybe we need
this
to
is
look
gonna
at the
come.
HVAC system, that is 1.6 million.
we just looked at it at the last meeting.
And I
We
voted
looked at
no.
it as a prior meeting. And the truth is, our township hall, we know that this HVAC system is going to fail. We've had a study saying we have to replace it. We've had experts look at different options for us. This is the number we have right now.
We voted, well, if you voted no, it was 6-1 to do that, so that discussion, I believe, is already came.
I mean, we could certainly revisit it when it comes, but then somebody needs to bring a cheaper HVAC option, but this is just the reality of taking care of an aging building.
Well, it's, you know, like, you need a car, so do you need a BMW or a Mercedes or a Jaguar to get you around? Or does a car that gets you around and still look nice? So it's that's how I compare this
If there's,
HVAC system.
if there's realistically an HVAC system that costs less than $1.6 million, no one has presented it to the board. So there isn't one that costs $600,000. It is in that range. We're gonna go after that IRS direct pay, but even with, I think it's pretty nervy of us, and I like being nervy, but I think it's pretty nervy of us to be putting in the $603,000 of IRS direct pay refund for HVAC. So I'm looking at this budget as, you know, I'm looking at our fund balance, and I'm expecting that we very well may have to pay that $603,000 difference because the IRS direct pay program could go away. You know, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm saying that's a priority for me. You know, we have to take care of Township Hall.
Absolutely, but we also have to look at all of our options, and we were not provided all the options with there was only 5 options, and you have to choose this one or this one.
Okay, so who's got something to put on the table for reductions? I have small things,
Okay,
but they're probably not. Office supplies for technology, 101,228, $3,700. What is technology used for office supplies?
so office supplies for technology, that includes things like mice and even keyboards, I think, but some of those small items, right, Rebecca? Those get billed to office supplies.
Okay,
Yeah,
take that off.
yeah.
All right.
What we were talking about before.
Yes.
Can I ask a question quickly?
Yeah,
If I'm looking at, I don't know if this is gonna be helpful or not. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm looking at the most recently updated fund balance policy, it does state that one-time legal expenses can be excluded from like the fund balance minimum policy. Is that correct?
yeah.
If that
I
is
thought
the
it was
case,
one-time emergency,
well, it says,
say one time.
it says, with approval of the board, the following reasons justify appropriations that may draw the fund balance below the 100% planned use of reserves or capital expenditure. One-time emergency expenditures, said emergency having been declared by the board, and then one-time legal expenses. I just don't know if some of those one-time legal expenses that are maybe currently in the budget now should be removed from the breakout that you did to help come up with the $300,000 that you needed to reduce the budget by. It's just truly a question, not having been able to look at this document before today. The like breakout to get to the 1.27 and then backing out the HVAC.
Yeah, I
So I'm
think you
just
are
curious.
reading it right. It's with approval by the board if the board wants to accept one-time legal fees, accept one-time capital.
So I guess my question is, would that reduce the like 372,000 that you think you need to remove from the budget? I don't know exactly by how much. I don't know what you want to determine as one-time legal expense in the budget right now, but it was just a thought if
Yeah.
it would be helpful.
Thanks, Ally.
Don't know if I assisted or caused further confusion.
No,
but
that was
I was
helpful. That was helpful.
I think you're correct. We could look at it from both aspects. We could look at it for the HVAC, look at it for legal expenses.
Well, I think you are already looking at the HVAC, but I guess I'm saying, can you also look at the legal expenses as well? Or is it
Now, what
not the case?
I think Ryan is saying we could back out the one-time capital HVAC.
Right.
Which you are doing.
No, we haven't taken that out of the budget. It's in.
No,
Oh, I mean,
from our
I think we're,
target cuts.
yes, what Jessica's saying.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So a couple other decisions we had on, that was still pending was I think the authorized positions, we were pretty well settled on. The only updates that are reflected here and already in the budget, the 3.1% COLA is budgeted, already. The increase in officer salaries is budgeted already. And reflected here. The only one we hadn't taken action on that we said we wanted more information on, which Andrea provided, was the MCAT. And then also there was the outstanding request for an increase in hourly rate for the assistant assessor. So those were the two remaining personnel, because we had said, I think it was Judy's suggestion that we wait on looking at the $50 an hour request until after the COLA. So there's a request to increase the assistant assessor from, it was 47.30 to 50. With a COLA, it's 48.77. I know that we are looking at Romberg and things, but I would say we've gotten a lot of good data on this over the last year.
So what's the incremental difference? I
So
think it's small, isn't it?
yeah, so 48.77 to 50 would be,
2.5%.
No, I mean the actual,
Oh, like the actual dollars.
yeah.
yeah. And then 24 hours a week.
$835.04.
Yeah. And the 3.5 HCS.
And 3.5 HCSP. Okay, 1588. 1589.
Yeah, I take that.
So with that, I would make a motion to increase the hourly rate from 48.77 to 50 for the assistant assessor.
I'll support that.
Roll call vote, please.
Flintoff, yes. Grant,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Yeaple.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Then the other one was the request for an MCAT position. There's a request for a a 1.0 assessing technician, parentheses MCAT. And it is requested by the department, proposed by the supervisor, and the board has not taken a position on it. Andrea provided us a memo, a couple memos on this. This would be a full-time position. And Rebecca, what's the fully loaded cost of that? Okay, I can check my spreadsheet too, or Ally, could you look at the fully loaded cost there? Is that in the budget here? Trying to
What's the position title again?
Assessing technician MCAT 101257.
I don't know if it's being calculated. Let me see.
Yeah, I think it's not in here yet.
Shows it's denied.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it is denied in the authorized position, so it would not have gotten updated in the budget. And I don't know if it's in
Yeah,
the
it's not.
authorized
So it's
positions
a
anywhere.
62.4 plus fringe.
$62,400 plus French.
Yeah,
I thought it was at 45.
So the assessing or the note in the authorized positions spreadsheet says budgeted for 24 hours a week at $22.17. So
Oh,
then
so
there's an
it's
additional
24
note.
hours.
Yeah, and then there's an additional saying that the assessor mentioned $45,000.
That's right. So it's not a full-time position that's being requested, it's being requested for 24 hours a week. So
That's
we'd
what the
have-
authorized positions spreadsheet
Yeah.
says.
So we'd have 2 full-time people and 2 part-time people. All of whom would be receiving benefits.
Well, part-time people receive some benefits.
Oh, that's right, not healthcare. Okay. I don't know what the recommendation of our office coordinator. I know she's given it to me privately, but she's not here. What do we want to do with this? I'm pretty lukewarm about adding a position to the general fund at this point.
To see the value of what was presented to us. Just see the reality of our funding. That's my concern.
That is my overall concern on any of these.
And maybe the car will help. I mean, if it sounds like there's a priority for the board to fund the car for assessing rather than the person. I mean, is that what we think will help them get their work done more? A car?
Maybe.
Yeah, that might be, we could see.
Let's ask them. Can we put this aside for right now?
No, we need to make some.
Yeah, make a
Decision.
decision so we can.
I mean, it's out right now. So
Um,
it gets added in.
Yeah, I wish-
We add then.
Well, from what I understand, this will help with assessing parcels, which could help the township generate more in revenue.
The way I read that, the documentation submitted is a occasional aspect that we will receive additional revenue, but it's not the main goal. The main goal of the position is to try to be fair and equitable with property owners, which I think is a positive thing. I think another goal of the position is to try to visit all the properties once every 5 years, which is another reasonable good goal. I think that there's a lot of good that comes with this, but we just talked about state shared revenue, not knowing what it will be. The state's budget comes out later this year. It's not on our same fiscal year. The federal government's doing many things that have question marks right now when it comes to money. I don't want to set us into a situation where we don't know what's going to go on financially.
Well, but it's life though. We don't know what's gonna.
But I know what's going on with the budget I have presented to me now. If I'm adding somebody new into that, it makes it somebody else we're responsible for. And I think it makes us have a bad look if we aren't fiscally stable for it. I think the hard question, which I would ask, but I don't think we can do it tonight, is car or person. I think that's a question.
Yeah, so I mean, they've been asking about the car for 2 years, so I think, you know. Not at the person right now, and
And we could visit this next year as well, right?
Sure.
at any point.
Well,
I think at any point. I would say, Kathleen, you raised, thanks for this summary,
yeah, we need to,
good ideas.
yeah,
You wanna speak to the sheriff idea I'm liking so much, bullet point 3?
So also in the packet, I added, document called Scio Major Funding Concerns.
what page is it? Yeah, where is
It's gonna be, it was added late.
Oh, wait,
So it's at the
Well,
end.
okay, that doesn't help.
no, I mean, today.
Yes, late.
It's cost.
So you might not have a printout of it.
It's okay, you can just speak to it, it's.
Yeah, I'm not
pretty
whining about it,
simple.
I'm just trying to look for it.
Okay, so, yes, that's it. So, bullet point 3, although I would like to talk about bullet point 1 also. The DDA district has the highest incidence of law enforcement. I have a crime map for that. The DDA district revenue under contributes to the cost of law enforcement. And then let's tie it into number 1. The DEA receives $2 million of property tax. And the general fund receives 1.46. The DDA is actually getting more from property tax than our general fund.
An unelected body.
And then you tie that in with our sheriff expense is 25% of our general fund expense. So we have, on the one hand, the DDA is capturing more than even the township from this general fund. Based on this, my assessment is that the DDA is under contributing to the cost of law enforcement, and that's where most of the law enforcement incidents occur. So I think we need to make an adjustment on DDA capture in light of what our budget constraints are and how much we have no funding source for sheriff.
Right.
And we don't have to have sheriff
Well-
either. It's a choice. We can always do state police.
No, but I just want to recognize a great thing about Scio. Is that we can, thus far, we've been able to afford sheriff services and services for road through the general fund. That's what keeps our taxes lower. Kathleen, I'm intrigued by your idea, because I have a couple other ideas for how the TDA could pay for things, but what GL number are you looking at in particular, the DDA capture?
Where did I come up with these numbers?
No, I'm sorry. Are you proposing actually reducing the revenue that goes to the DDA? Or are you proposing that the DDA pay for some of the sheriff's expenses?
I'm proposing that I believe that the capture rate is too high. If it's exceeding what the general fund gets from property tax, it's too high. Along with the fact that because they're too high, they're really not paying for the sheriff's service that occurs in the district.
Well, in the DDA, so the, yeah, but can, by law, the DDA spend money on sheriff and other things? Because it's set up for improvements. It's under the, what is the?
DDA Enabling Act. There was actually someone that mentioned to me in a one-off conversation about the DDA contracting for PSUs. That's a whole nother discussion, police service units.
Let me just say the DDA doesn't get their own police force. No, okay.
No,
Got it out of my system.
I'm just throwing it out there. It was an idea somebody threw at me. But
And so I would recommend that we lower the capture rate for the DDA.
Can we do that?
Yes, we can, I believe.
I think we need to talk to our attorney about that
Yeah,
before we
right.
propose that at the table.
Okay, so these are major funding concerns.
But this is a question, why don't you state the question clearly so our attorney has
Well,
some time?
I don't want to put,
Okay.
I don't want Mariah to shoot from the hip and not having a chance.
No,
to
no,
make
I
her
don't,
say-
not asking for
never
an
does.
answer. She's not going to, that's right. Even if you did want it.
Can we look at the capture rate and look at reducing it for what the DDA captures?
Can I ask another question?
Mhm.
This has come up before. And Mariah, can we please look at accepting the open space fund and the parks fund and the public transit fund from DDA capture? Because I'm particularly interested in, I think that there's especially an argument for open space above all. Parks arguably, though I know DDA and parks is, trying to make this a DDA thing. But open space, I don't know that there's any open space in the DDA district. They've been taking money from the open space village for years. And we've talked about this internally, that they're through mutual agreement, the DDA and the township can potentially accept certain millages from the DDA capture.
Yeah, I do believe it's just by agreement, though. I don't think.
By agreement. But
That's
yeah,
my understanding, but I'll look into it.
yeah, but I would hope that, given that we appoint all DDA members or confirm the appointment of, that we would have members who would be open to that conversation.
Yeah, and what is the purpose of lowering the capture again? Because we're capturing money from other entities that are not villages within the township. I believe,
You're capturing money from millages in the township.
but also outside of the township, because I believe it's just schools.
I don't think
And
schools
library?
pay anything into the DDA.
And we,
Library, township, Library, township operating.
Library actually has something in the statute where the library can request a portion of their capture back.
Yeah,
That's a specific statute.
and then we don't capture from the schools, but there's, right? Is that? whatever?
I'm running distribution report so I can remember since I've
Okay.
been here for almost 12 hours. Give me a second.
Well, and these are things to consider. We're
Mhm.
not making decisions right now, so these are all good questions that we need to look into and revisit,
Mhm.
because there's just too many unanswered questions regarding statute.
But I do have one idea that I'm sure about with statute. Is that I do wonder if we couldn't ask the DDA to contribute toward. Not directly to the sheriff's department, because I want to keep the contract with the township, not have a contract with the DDA. But ask the DDA to contribute, let's say for one PSU or two PSUs to our 101, 301 sheriff's expenditure.
And again, we would have to look at statute and see what we,
It's a good Can Miller question too. He has some information about that.
oh,
Ryan Can Miller?
Okay.
oh, right, okay.
That's good. But is it a
Also,
question?
not to make it more complicated, but you're not required to have a deed.
Right.
Well,
Well, we
no,
are
I
at this
know.
point, we are because we still have bonds until those bonds are paid off.
Right.
County operating, library operating, community college operating. WISD operating. Nope, take that back. The county again. Township, conservation, transportation, and parks is what we capture.
Right, we capture parks and then we have our
And-
parks director going to ask the DDA for money. We capture
And-
open space and then have open space go. I mean, it's so
And they
inefficient.
don't give, and they don't give back what they captured.
Not even close.
Bob Stites used to talk about $100,000 and this year they gave 50. It's like-
Well, but the thing is that we have, Bob Stites isn't there anymore, and we have this new board, or new people, so we're getting caught up on all of this. But these are all really good questions.
And they're pertinent to this budget.
Township operating capture, just for the record, was $126,201.
That's what we captured. So if we reduced or eliminate the DDA, we would not be able to capture it. We wouldn't have those funding.
Oh, no, just go back to the general fund.
Yes.
Making a policy decision to say fact.
So the,
Open space was $69,308.
just this year? or
Just this year for tax year 2024. Transportation for the bus was $48,069.
Right,
Parks was $88,688.
right.
So, I mean, you add all those up, that's about $400,000. Right, so my math went right on that.
And we should definitely get the transit, because every year we're $122,000 in deficit.
So I do respect the DDA, submits their budget and we just approve it, but since we have the supervisor, CEO of the DDA and another member of the DDA here, I want to just formally make a request that the DDA consider providing a significant contribution toward the costs of our sheriff's contract to 101, 301.
Okay, but let's look at statute and see what the DDA can and cannot.
Definitely, if the DDA
consideration.
finds that they can't do that, then the DDA can let us know that.
And Mariah will advise us.
Yeah, if we're not allowed to accept that money, we won't, so. But that would
So Mariah,
definitely
could you
solve
be,
it.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, excuse me.
Could you be the DDA attorney as well? Because Jim was at one point and then said he couldn't because, well, potential conflict of
And
interest.
I would be.
I would have the same conflict.
Yeah, okay, yeah, just wanted to be clear, because if we're having you look at the DDA whatnot. And
She's advising the board.
That's basic statutes, that's all.
just clarifying.
What else do you have?
Okay, what else do we have? So
Are we gonna
Oh,
get to?
sorry, I wrote all over here.
Are we gonna get to be in compliance with our policy on fund balance for the general ledger or
for the general fund.
general fund, sorry, general.
Well, one thing I wanna think about is it's small, but it is, you know, I just wanna confirm under recycling, that 11,400, that is for that newsletter that we do in partnership with Priority Waste.
Because we're gonna be revisiting priority.
So I wanna say that is fully dependent. I wanna say that 11,400, it's not that we don't care about recycling, we do, but this is all about fully dependent on Priority Waste. So if that is a question, then I might suggest that we zero that out for now.
I think we could have a consensus vote on that one.
So what is this about priority waste may not be?
Well, we will be visiting the priority waste conversation in a closed session coming up soon.
At the next meeting.
So this would be summertime, the 11,400, actually 5,000 of that is for the Warma membership, which is a different conversation. So I guess the savings is really less. It's only 6,400. So I withdraw that. It's not enough.
So, John, do you have any suggestions on how
You
to?
know, went through it a lot. But no, if the fund balance for the legal fees, if the fund balance doesn't have to include the legal fees, could that help?
It kicks the can down the road. Yes.
So the policy states one-time legal fees. Do we want to look at which of the 101, 266, 826 is one time? That would be 310,000. That's budgeted for defense and state be carried. The HVAC is 904,800. Then we already have some savings. I think what, you know, is, I think also that, you know, with everything that's happening at the federal level, that IRS direct pay, we are budgeting for it because we've been promised it, but I think there's a likelihood that could go away. And also state shared revenue, that'll be, I think, the first place we see a hit
It would be huge.
next year. So,
That's
you know,
$2 million, right?
2.2.
And if those things happen, we have special meeting and we deal with it,
yeah,
and they may happen.
yeah. I just want the board to be prepared that we may need to make some much more painful cuts.
Well, I'm in.
Otherwise, we're at 3 hours and you can't get anywhere else to come up with other ideas. I don't know about you.
So the motion was put out there that if we don't have if folks don't have other suggestions, that we adjourn.
I would just ask before that, if there is the idea on the table that the board wants to state their compliance with the fund balance policy for these two reasons, that I would ask that somebody make that motion. Because what we need to be able to do practically is to be able to be done enough with this so that Ally can go back, make these changes. And on March 11th, we can consider the final adoption. I also just want to flag at the beginning of this meeting, you all said you wanted to talk a little bit about cost allocation. So if you,
right.
if you want to do that, or if you don't want to do that, that's okay. But I know we had some interested staff person and commission member.
We didn't think it was gonna take this long.
No, I know. I just didn't want to, it'd been acknowledged at the beginning, so. Brian, do you have just a rough number, even if it's not totally accurate, of how much?
Yeah,
We've
I
reduced.
do with my computer as a butcher, because it makes charger, because it
Yeah.
this would this one either. I show. As of when we have GCSI, which was at 555, we were at $177,908.34 in deficit.
Okay,
Yes, I would find, pursuant to what you mentioned, Jessica, I would find we are complying with our fund balance policy due to $310,000 of legal fees that are one-time expense, as well as projected net cost on the HVAC system. Sorry, I've done some.
904,800.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
4,800. That we comply with our fund balance policy because of those reasons.
I support that.
Trail off a little bit toward the end.
Yeah. So I guess I would find that we comply with our fund balance policy with for the following two exceptions. Let me make this a little bit clearer.
So I have the fund balance where it says, with the approval of the board, the following reasons justify appropriations that may draw the fund balance below the 100% planned use of reserves for capital expenditures. A one-time emergency expenditure, said emergency having been declared by the board, and a one-time legal expenses. Are we declaring that the breakdown of our HVAC is an emergency and that justifies fund?
No, a planned capital expenditure.
Planned capital expense.
Okay. All right.
This is the planned capital expense for the HVAC equipment in the amount of $904,800 and one-time legal expense of $310,000. That make more sense?
Yep. as
What
one
about the one-time legal expenses?
Of $310,000 is what Ryan is saying.
Okay.
I'm supporting. So I would support that. I would also just add this is related, but I would just also add, I'd also like to assign general fund balance that would cover the instance where the IRS direct pay doesn't come through. So this is kind of a two for motion, poor form, but perfectly legal. To assign $603,200 of general fund balance to be set aside for the instance when the IRS direct pay, in case the IRS direct pay does not, in the event that the IRS direct pay does not come through. And what that would mean then is that our fund balance would show that much assigned. Okay, so that we are able to finish this major capital project. Would you accept that friendly amendment, Brian?
Discussion. From a financial point of view and fiscal responsibility, I don't agree with this, but I will support it. I think we're kicking the can down the road in some of these major funding concerns don't go
I
away.
agree.
And we need to address them.
Yes.
I agree. I think we've started at the margins here, but we've got some major issues and, we just need to keep figuring out ways to be more efficient.
Roll call vote?
Flintoff, yes. Grant,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Riser,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Yeaple.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Now we're finished here.
You're gonna do the cost
Yes.
allocation?
I was gonna ask if that was, hopefully we're finished with that other part. Okay, cost allocation.
Sure. So, each of the last 2 years, I've written up a memo that describes it. For those of you, and there's another memo that has background to the indirect cost allocation plan. So to be clear, since at least 2013, the general fund has at the end of the year recouped monies from other funds. It used to be without a written plan. It is better to have a written plan so that it can be debated at the board table with the public view so that it is written down. It applies to non-general fund active funds, and it accepts any of the services that are covered by the 1% property tax admin fee. So for example, the assessing function, the costs of Ryan and Joelle collecting property tax payments, that's all covered by the 1%. So about 31% of the deputy treasurer's time is covered in this, because the remainder of his time is collecting things like tax bills, where that 1% covers that. The cost allocation plan, I'll just go through the sections to just kind of get the main ideas out. I assume you've all read this. Or haven't read it, either way is fine. But the cost allocation plan is applied to non-general fund active funds. So it's not ARPA, it's not the Economic Development Corporation Fund, the SAD funds, revolving funds for the reasons there. Starting in 2025, we started applying it to the DDA. That was an area where we were, I would argue, losing a lot of general fund money. We had a flat fee that was insufficient for the services that the DDA had used. It's an active subcomponent unit. The costs that are included in the plan, you'll see it's very few. Most plans can include many more areas like manager or human resources or others. We do not. We include accounting, auditing, information technology, treasurer, and building and grounds. So anywhere where we just made changes to those departments, it'll have a slight change to the cost allocation across all funds. Okay, so that'll be implied. So where building and grounds go up, cost allocation goes up. Where IT goes up, cost allocation goes up. What you saw in the last year was the cost of the treasurer went down. And so you see those costs go down. When the cost of our audit goes down, as has happened over the last year, those costs go down. The specifics of what's included here, because it's not the full departments, the specifics on what portions of those departments are included here. Okay, and then which funds incur which indirect costs. It is set by who uses each of those. So for example, fire, accounting, auditing, and information technology. The fire fund is not billed any of buildings and grounds because they're not here. They pay for their own costs, right? Buildings and grounds is just for Township Hall. Fire does not pay for any of the treasurer because the fire SAD is actually charged that 1% property tax admin fee. So they don't collect, right? They're not doing a lot of collection related to fire other than the actual, what comes in the tax bill. Parks and paths and water and sewer Parks and Paths, have 4 of the indirect costs: accounting, auditing, IT, buildings and grounds. So they have a staff person, they have a IT account, so they're charged a portion of IT. They use a little bit of this building, charged a portion of that. Public transit, tree mitigation, accounting and auditing, open space, accounting, information technology. This year I backed out the auditing cost so that the auditing cost is no longer charged to open space fund. I thought that that was a reasonable, resolution, to some of the concerns, expressed by Daryl and the others, from the LPC. I appreciate that Daryl may have a different opinion, but that is there and explained here. I had consulted with our finance staff and our attorney, and certainly auditing of all things, which is the thing that we've always taken from the open space fund, is probably the thing that's most often considered to be indirect. So that is backed out this year. You'll see there's costs incurred, but they're not recovered. So, these small funds here and the special assessment funds. So they're used in the calculation in the spreadsheet. So when we say, okay, how many receipts here, how many AP there, they're included there, but the general fund just eats those costs. Public Improvement Fund, accounting and auditing, DDA, accounting, auditing, and IT. So, they don't use any space here. The collection of the DDA money is covered by the 1% property tax admin, so they're not, charged treasury. And then sewer and water is the 2 funds where all 5 are applied. So water and sewer are the ones where the treasurer's, cashing the utility bills, has some space here, IT, auditing, and accounting. Okay, so it's sort of applied based on which funds use which services. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So then the method. So this is a method, and I'll just say, cost allocation plans are kind of famously unpopular. I think not having a plan is unpopular and wrong. I think having a plan might be unpopular, but at least there's a justification to put out there. Some places just say X%. I don't think that's right. This is based on real data. So this was initially developed by the Woodhill Group. We've tweaked it over the years. We had Maynard look at it, plan, and I prepare and maintain this. Once we have a finance director, can delegate it, but it's pretty straightforward. We get it set up, and then we base it on the budgeted amount. And then with the month-end reconciliation that Rebecca does, she takes 1/12 of the budgeted amount each of the months, so that funds aren't just hit at the end as they used to be, so that it's 1/12 of the budgeted amount each year. And then in this final month, as part of the year-end budget amendments, actually go back and say, okay, what were the real costs? We thought the cost of, say, IT was going to be X. We see it's Y. If it's more than 5% difference, we'll do a year-end budget adjustment to actually, true things up a little bit. In terms of the method, and this is part of what Daryl has talked about, is the bases of the allocation. And you'll see the basis, it's intended to be varied, and it's intended to sort of balance what the drivers are. So you have some funds that are large, some funds that are small, some funds that are active, some funds that are inactive. And the allocation unit and the method of allocation is described here. So for example, with accounting, that's where you have the most drivers of what the method will be. So some 75% of the finance director and consultants is based on the relative number of employees by fund, right? So funds that don't have employees, like, open space or parks has, 1 or 1.5, out of the total. Yes.
Their eyes are glazing over.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So anyways, the methods are here. And then the data is real. We use the same data each year and it's calendar year end data. And if anybody wants to go through the spreadsheet, we can. I have done that. Joyce and I did that with Will Weber and Barry last year. Happy to do it with anybody. I know I've offered to do that with you, Murphy. Anybody who's interested in it, can see. I know Daryl also has raised some legal questions based on an ordinance, that is specific to open space. There is no other fund that has an ordinance that speaks to that. Certainly Parks speaks to, the millage language of Parks speaks to the cap on administrative costs, which I was a proponent of because I didn't want the fund to go to a lot of other things. And then we have the language, I think that's pretty general in the ordinance, but none of it speaks to, I can't think of any other fund that has the directly.
Parks does in the ordinance.
Parks has
Parks has specific things you can spend money on.
the ordinance that Jim wrote. Yeah,
I don't know who wrote it.
yeah,
The
I
ordinance.
remember.
Yeah.
So Daryl, I thought, Daryl, the legal question you had raised to me was related to the open space ordinance.
I represent open space.
Yeah, I've never heard any legal concerns about the parks ordinance.
Parks, I refer to parks because they do have the similar language. And they actually get more precise when they deal with the section that says miscellaneous, that administration costs can include miscellaneous.
Exactly.
expenses, including, but limited to insurance, GIS, and something else. I can't remember.
Exactly, and we wrote it that way because the millage language has that cap on administrative funds. And so we wrote the ordinance to kind of describe what was meant by that, so that we never spend more than X percent.
Well, but it doesn't say limited to 15%, it says it's limited to those particular time and
Right, that are administrative costs per the millage language, which is different than the cost allocation.
Well, I could debate that, but I'm,
Okay.
you know, that's a parks.
Okay, yeah, no, Murphy, if you have concerns, you know, yeah, I mean, if we could take them offline and kind of work through them, because I'm not familiar with what they are.
Okay,
Yeah,
say something. I hope you folks realize
11th hour.
I'm a great supporter of land preservation in parks. And I hope you see that this board is trying to get you other funds like the DDA and I think it offsets this pain quite a bit. And we're committed to doing that.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, this is, and Daryl, I really want to say, you know, like your memos, I took every single one and worked through things. I know that, you know, we disagree on legal interpretation and respect that. But we're always making tweaks to it. And I would just say that, you know, something else, the reason why we have different drivers is for equity. If you base everything on activity and not at all on, say, size of unassigned fund balance or something like that, then there becomes an unfairness in that too. So that's why we have the different types of factors that go into it. So certainly if somebody has a methodology that is more fair to all the funds, that's what we want to get to. So,
Well, I realize you guys are under a deadline now. You're under a tight deadline, so trying to revamp the methodology at this point is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. But I think having dialogue back and forth is really important, which we really haven't had a chance to do. And I agree with you, what affects one fund in a positive manner might, you know, another fund might disagree and say, no, we don't like those allocation methodologies. So
that's what always happens.
what I would like to ask is that sometime in the summer, when you're under less budgeting pressures. We have a meeting with department heads, and we all talk about what makes sense for us and what doesn't make sense for us. I mean, because I feel like, it's important to get a collaborative feedback in this and having a dialogue in it, which really has not happened, so far.
Yeah, and I mean, and Daryl, you've been the one to give feedback, and I do appreciate it, but no one else has had feedback until, so.
I brought forward concerns about the cost allocation in the past and related to the village language. And I, for one, it's clear cost allocations are very normal and I'm very much in favor of them. It's just that there are a couple of, mostly there's two specific areas that I think might not qualify for open spaces and parks.
And this is great. This is the first I'm hearing of it. So what are the two areas?
The building and grounds are essentially paying for square footage. I think that there's a pretty clear lack of wording in the millage to support that particular cost. It supports audits, GIS, and
I think you're conflating the administrative costs as tied to, because when Jim wrote that ordinance for the board and the resulting policy, so we wrote the millage, the ordinance, and the policy. And I'm sorry to be so definitive about it, it's just I was personally involved in all of those, was that definition is about the administrative costs as tied to the millage.
and any kind of cost that comes out of the parks. It's a good conversation for us to have had in past, but I agree with Daryl, like just in preparation for the upcoming year, it would be great for us to be able to sit down and have a conversation. It is too late really to make any alterations.
I'm totally happy to, but let's just get all the ordinance and things out in front of us and hash it out.
About the are you saying that the cost allocation methodology that is allocating business costs or building costs to parks is not an administrative cost?
I need to go back and look at that. What I'm saying is that we spent a lot of time on an ordinance, which I have not read in 2 or 3 years. Nobody's brought this up to me. So the administrative cost definition was related to that millage. And there was talk about, well, can you even fund a park staff person? And Rebecca will remember some of this when we were first starting out, saying, how are we going to track the administrative piece of it so it doesn't go above that X%? And, can you, well, yes, we can fund a parks person. And so I'd have to sit back down because I haven't looked at this in a while. So if these are the questions on your mind, that this is kind of like something we need to talk about, because I've been looking at the cost allocation, but not this administrative cap question, which is like, it's related, but it's like a Venn diagram.
Oh, I don't think the question is.
Oh, so it's not about the cost allocation plan.
No, it's not about the overall administrative cap.
Okay.
That includes cost allocation plus Murphy's salary, but whatever. It's about the actual cost allocation.
Yeah, and I would argue Murphy's salary is not part of the administrative for the parks millage. Otherwise, we'd be, yeah. So that's another thing. I think.
And this is good to have a conversation. It's just we haven't had an opportunity to do that. And that's why I keep coming back, is because.
Yeah, and so it sounds like 2 issues. We're talking about 2 millages, 2 ordinances, and a policy. And then the cost allocation policy. So, I mean, I'm more than happy, as I've told you, Murphy, to sit down and talk to whether we look at the spreadsheet or the ordinance or not. But if there's any better way, when we look at buildings and grounds, we look at relative number of square feet at Township Hall.
Yeah.
Which seems fair, but I don't know if there's another.
Continue.
Yeah,
Another time.
okay,
And thank you. Appreciate you.
yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
And also thank you for trying to get us.
Well, keep lobbying this board on that. please. I mean it.
And I want to say thank you to Kathleen for all the work she did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're all grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking us through
You're welcome.
all the decisions.
I could have gone to Mexico this week. But I'm here.
Moving on to public comment. Anyone in Township Hall that would like to speak? Rebecca? No. Anyone online, please?
Please raise your Zoom hand. First up is Paula, followed by Rob Pattinson. Hi, Paula.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for all the hard work, everyone's presence there. The whole DDA thing, I looked at Ann Arbor's DDA. They get 1% instead of the 2%. And they do a lot more, their DDA. And I looked at all it's online, you can find it all. And they have to do the parking lots. They have a lot of things that they do. So that's just something I wanted to bring up there.
We generate a lot more revenue than we do.
So
Yeah, I agree.
you
We'll
know,
look at it.
you all know how I feel that Donna Palmer, that their thing was the road, and that's their mission.
Right.
So, and I still, Will had asked for the DDA to come back in and make presentations. That never happened. So that's just my opinion, as I always say. But the fact is, Ann Arbor's DDA receives maybe not less because of their size, but they do a lot more for what the 1%. So I don't know what the legalities are and when you're determining what their mission statement is, but that's something I've looked at for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Next up is Rob Pattinson. Hi, Rob.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, thank you for this working session. It's a very good example of how this idea can work for the township. Well done. Camera systems. I've got a question about that. You talked about the utilities system for the pump house, et cetera, was $30,000. And then you talked about a camera system for Township Hall was another $30,000. Was that combined into one budget line of 30,000 or is it 60 total?
It is proposed for 60 total, hoping that is way too high, worrying it is not.
Okay. I would highly suggest combining those two systems, and that will make it much more efficient. Jess, you said the assessing department gets $1,000 a year in reimbursements at 76 cents a mile. That's all of about 1,300 miles a year. Is that all they're driving?
I calculated based on their budget request that they are driving 3,800 miles a year. It's
Oh.
70 cents a mile.
Okay, that's a lot more than $1,000. Okay. And do we know how many miles Sean McCormick did while he was here? He was here about a year.
Rob, we'd have to I can give you ask Rebecca to pull the exact number and email it to you tomorrow, but it's gonna be a rolled up number for everyone. So
Right.
it'll be like if a clerk's assistant went somewhere, Sean or assessing. It's a small amount for the entire general fund.
Righto. And if we have a code enforcement officer and now we have 3 class 3 assessors that could use that vehicle, that would justify having a vehicle more than doing the reimbursement. And I don't ever remember a budget meeting after posting 587 videos over the last 4+ years. I don't remember ever seeing a budget meeting this detailed. Number one, have we ever had one this detailed? And number two, have we had balanced budgets in years previous?
No, and sometimes by accident.
Okay. All right. Well, once again, well done for going into this kind of depth. Now, last year, the board engaged professionals to estimate the costs of the HVAC system. That estimate came back with an expected cost to Scio of $390,000 about, with the included grants. Those grants were stable last year and could be counted on. When the job went out for quote this year, it came back at 1.8 million for the geothermal system and 1.6 million for the dual fuel system, with grants there now up at about 900,000 to $1 million. And now the grants aren't stable, which could add another $600,000 to the project. We could afford, in all caps, we could afford geothermal last year. This year, it's put the budget into deficit. And federal uncertainty makes it even more unlikely makes it even more likely it will be hugely expensive compared to estimates. That changes everything. Those vast differences between the estimates, quotes, and federal uncertainty have to take the board back to square one. The board should go back to the estimates and find a cheaper system. I've spoken to 2 company owners in Scio over the last few weeks. One had their new system installed a few years ago for 20% of what this system is quoted for the township. The other owner said it's going to cost a fortune to install the system this year. That sparked a call to an HVAC installer friend. They said this is not the year to install HVAC. He suggested postponing it to next year. Also, this currently proposed system is putting this year's budget into deficit. What about a loan? If we are so tight on the budget deficit, why not go for a loan that we could pay off early in the next few years, but that would allow you to get this year's budget balanced, and you could pay it off early as an option to help lessen the pressure of the deficit. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, is there anybody else online that would like to speak?
Oh, sorry.
No, okay,
Support.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion, or.
7:40.
7:40, there you go.
Great, thanks, everybody.